Sigh. In the empty classroom, Mai touched her black-framed glasses, no diopter actually, and emitted an irresistible sigh. Compared to the history class, this class was even more unpopular, military logistics. When other girls of Starwing Knights chose the courses of various sword skills, only she chose this course, which had zero relationships with a swordsman. Almost all the students here were servants of noble disciples, none of them had even reached the second rank. As a third-ranked female swordsman, she was like a crane standing among chickens here. Even the tutor of this lesson tried to persuade her that she didn't need to take this lesson, which of course couldn't help her increase her sword skill. However, she still chose it. Because she was the secretary of the Starwing Knights. She was the person who was in charge of the supplies for the knights. Don't compare me with Ling Ling, who has big breasts and has no brains. I'm more important than her. From examining and verifying new members of the Starwing Knights, to buying clothes and makeup for all girls of the Knights, she was supporting the cause of the Knights. If Who Are You, their leader, temporarily left, the Starwing Knights could still run. If Xiao Cao, their deputy leader, left, the Starwing Knights could still run. As for Ling Ling, that mascot of the Knights, she was even more negligible. However, if Mai Lan left even just one day, there would be trouble within the Starwing Knights. Thinking about it, the Starwing Knights was just an organization casually formed by a group of female swordsmen. It wasn't easy to build the structure and make it actually run. Regardless of the temporary state on the deserted island. After they returned to the human world, from the moment they stepped onto the boards of Master Cassina's floating ship Sands of Time, Mai Lan had started to exert all her strength and wisdom for maintaining the Knights. Their leader, Who Are You, was an aristocratic miss of the White Golden Rose family. Her appearance, body shape and prestige were all perfect. Even Mai Lan admitted that she was the best choice for their leader, at least for now. Their deputy leader, Xiao Cao, the strongest civilian female swordsman amongst all of them, was the core of the civilian girls' camp. All girls, no matter whether they were nobles or civilians, all united together under their leadership. It seemed that the Starwing Knights had unlimited potential, but in actuality, there were a lot of problems behind it. Even the small contradictions between the noble girls' camp and the civilian girls' camp were sufficient to let Mai Lan have no sleep for 1 or 2 nights. The different views of life, the world, and the values amongst the girls had caused a lot of disputes since the day they left the Water God's fantasy island. When they were on the deserted island, they had no choice and had to cooperate with each other. It was the best time of the Starwing Knights. In order to survive, both Noble Girls' Camp and Civilian Girls' Camp positively resolved conflicts and controlled themselves, and used the ranking battle of bread to set everyone's mind at rest. During that period, the ranking of girls naturally formed. Who Are You and Xiao Cao were in the first level. Ling Ling and Mai Lan were in the second level. Then Noble Girls occupied the most numbers of the top 10 list. After that was the place of Civilian Girls. It was a truth that no one could deny, that they all received Mai's black hair. However, there was still a difference between different people. The talents of Noble Girls were far better than Civilian Girls. In some sense, this gap could be filled through hard work. However, another gap was too desperate for most Civilian Girls. Even if they cultivated 3 times harder than the Noble Girls, the gap was still as wide as an insurmountable natural moat. It's a problem, a big problem. Mai Lan ground the penholder in her mouth, looking at the staggering data on the paper. On the paper, there were 38 names. However, most marks behind the names of civilian girls were N cup, normal cup, N cup, N cup. Even N plus cup was as rare as the hair of a phoenix. Mai Lan herself was just an R cup, rare cup. As for the marks behind the names of noble girls, they were all SR cup, super rare cup, SR cup, SR cup. There were even 2 monsters whose cup sizes were even greater than SR, which even made other noble girls feel jealous. SSR, superior super rare. Mai Lan even specially marked the 2 names with her golden pen. The leader of the Starwing Knights, Who Are You? The other secretary of the Starwing Knights, Ling Ling. They were the source of Mai Lan's feeling of pressure, and the 2 impassable mountains in front of the civilian girls. They could close the gap of strength by cultivating harder. However, even Mai Lan felt desperate in this regard. Therefore, they created that whimsical plan. It wasn't just a dream of the Starwing Knights. Most girls who knew that information and had that regret had dreamed of it. In contrast to others, the girls of the Starwing Knights really performed the plan. For this, they could do whatever it took. The medicinal field where Lulu cultivated the dragon plants was the first step of the plan. A single spark can start a prairie fire. My Lan started to work out the plan. For this purpose, she even willingly chose the lesson of military logistics, learning the knowledge of running an organization. It wouldn't work if she only learned the knowledge from the library, she must learn it step by step, from theory to practice. Today, My Lan was also studying hard for the great plan of the Starwing Knights. She believed that she could become a pillar of the Starwing Knights, making a contribution to the happy future of everyone. That night, My Lan held a lot of books in her arms and left the library with a tired look. After listening to the lesson today, she had a new idea for the plan, and had a clearer perception of the future of the Starwing Knights. Shuffle. After throwing the books on her desk, My Lan wiped her glasses with a piece of smooth cloth. She took out her notepad and started to modify the plan. N. No matter how many times she saw these marks made My Lan feel pain in her heart. There was a gap between different girls. SR. SSR, envy and jealousy echoed in her heart. Apparently, it was a one-sided war between the civilian girls' camp and the noble girls' camp. If it wasn't because of the existence of the multi-headed demon dragon, the situation could be much more desperate. Even though it was as difficult as climbing up to the sky to hunt the cunning demon dragon, at least, it left all females in the universe a glimmer of hope. Even though the hope was really too slender, it still became the last hope of endless people. Compared to this, the gap between the strength of the civilian girls' camp and the noble girls' camp was not that important. Third rank. Second rank, Hua Yu and Xiao Cao were still the strongest when it came to the comparison of strength. There weren't too many differences among others. Of course, everyone has obtained the power of the miracle. She had recorded the data of all members of the Starwing Knights and drew a table. From the table, it was easy to see the cutting point. Since that day, everyone's fate went in a different direction. Luck? No, it's a miracle. My Lan didn't believe that it was due to luck, she preferred to regard it as a miracle. The person who created the miracle couldn't be Hua Yu nor Xiao Cao, not to mention that Bimbo Ling Ling Mai, you are our miracle. No, our God. This was the thing no one said but everyone believed. At first, they only treated it as a tale. Just like mortals would pray to virtual gods, they thought that her beautiful black hair a lucky charm. No one expected that it would be the start of the miracle. After obtaining Mai's black hair, they all noticed the remarkable changes. My Lan was sure that before she obtained Mai's black hair, she had zero chance to satisfy the entrance requirement of the Sword Palace. Other people may think that they were just in a super good shape, only My Lan knew that it wasn't the reason. The sword skill she learned was strict, every movement must be 100% correct. The advantage of the sword skill was that she could easily find every meager progress for herself. Only after countless practices could she become stronger. There was no spurt of progress. She couldn't even expect a higher level for herself. The second rank. She would reach her limit even before reaching the peak of the second rank. There wasn't a wide world that was waiting for her. No matter how hard she tried, the limit of her sword skill was the second rank. After that, there was nowhere she could go. Not everyone had great potentials such as Xiao Cao and Hua Yu. They just needed an opportunity before they put on a spurt. The hard practice couldn't let her improve. If she practiced too hard, her body would even suffer internal injuries and move backward toward the first rank. It was sad, but it was the reality. It was the abyss My Lan once faced and the nightmare countless civilian swordsmen were still facing. Most people didn't have great talent. Even if they did their best, it wasn't possible for them to reach the third rank. They had no way to reach the world of higher ranks. However, noble people were facing a different situation. With the support of their family, at least, they could reach the peak of the second rank, then upgraded to the third rank using rare herbs or pills. Unfortunately, My Lan was just a civilian. She thought that it was already the end of her cultivation, until that day, she met her god. The black-haired god who presented them with her long black hair. Hua Yu was the leader and Xiao Cao was the deputy leader. However, she was the only soul of the Starwing Knights. She was the one everyone loved, and the reason for the existence of the Starwing Knights. Mai Lan murmured the name with a sweet smile. Whoa. Mai Lan. What should I do? Suddenly, the door of her room was knocked open and Ling Ling ran into her room with a crying look. Ling Ling. I told you to knock on the door first before you come in. Mai Lan was really infuriated. Why can you be so carefree? You just look cute and have a well-oiled disposition. Miss SSR. I hate you. You are the final boss of my life. Ling Ling. Before meeting Ling Ling, Mai Lan could not believe that such a favored woman really existed in the world. Mai Lan didn't see Ling Ling spending too much time on practicing her sword skills. She spent more time enjoying delicious food than practicing, but her sword skill was still among the top 3 of the Starwing Knights. She wasn't smart at all, but she could be another secretary trusted by Hua Yu. Even learn not and know not was too light to describe her. She was just a complete idiot. All the nutrients she ate must have all concentrated in her enviable breasts. What is a natural winner? That's a natural winner, but this kind of brainless fool was still loved by almost all girls of the Starwing Knights. Was there any reason for that? Mai Lan could hardly understand it. What should you do? Did you have some sort of trouble? The more she looked at this SSR, Ling Ling, the more Mai Lan felt that life was unfair. Although she didn't like this mascot of the Starwing Knights, she had to be patient to solve problems for her, which was her duty as the secretary of the Starwing Knights. All kinds of work, as long as it was about the Starwing Knights, she had to keep her hands on it. For this reason, she even took the initiative to undertake many tasks that could easily be assigned to others. Originally, it should be the housekeeper sent by Hua Yu's family to manage the Starwing Knights, whose management level was undoubtedly professional, but Mai Lan was reluctant to let others interfere in the affairs of the Starwing Knights. The affairs of the Starwing Knights must be solved by the members of the Starwing Knights. Maybe it was a kind of obsessive-compulsive disorder. Mai Lan knew that her desire for control was too strong, but she wanted all these things to be done perfectly. Her love for the Starwing Knights was so deep that she even had a spirit of dedication. So even though she didn't like Ling Ling and even felt that she was her natural enemy, she would still help Ling Ling without hesitation if Ling Ling was in trouble. As the secretary of the Starwing Knights but not just the mascot of the Knights, she must have such a sense of mission and responsibility. However, according to Mai Lan's understanding of Ling Ling, her so-called troubles were basically that she put too many peppers in noodles in the morning, or too few peppers in the noodles, or should she also put sugar or salt into the noodles? With her poor brain capacity, she couldn't have more worries. Whoop, whoa. Mai Lan. I'm not able to get married anymore. Contrary to Mai Lan's indifference, Ling Ling's enthusiasm and heartlessness were inherent. Now she met the greatest trouble in her life, so she came directly to Mai Lan, who was also a secretary. Can't get married? What do you mean? Mai Lan thought that Ling Ling had finally learned some new tricks. She speculated about the possible reasons. Is it because her cooking was so terrible that no one wanted to eat her food, so she stealthily switched out other people's foods and caused large-scale food poisoning? Or did she accidentally add unknown herbs to the pot and cause an unknown explosion? Or did her nasty breasts inadvertently seduce an ill-disposed noble disciple which led to massive bloodshed? Whatever they were all the things that were possibly caused by Ling Ling. After all, she was too clumsy and unsuspecting, which would naturally get herself into trouble. Had she not been born into a noble family, she would have been abducted countless times. Mai Lan even thought that only a piece of golden butter bread could lure her in and let someone kidnap her. I was kissed by my. Ling Ling looked at her close friend with tears in her eyes and told her that unprecedented, shocking news. What? Mai Lan took 3 steps back in succession, looking at Ling Ling with shock in her eyes. She looked at Ling Ling from her head to her feet, and then paying special attention to her full breasts, stammering, Mai? You mean Mai? Yes, Mai is strange today. Suddenly, She grabbed my hand and took me to the medicinal field. Then, Ling Ling's face suddenly turned red and covered her red face with her hands. Whoa! I can't get married anymore. Tell me in detail what happened. My Lan felt like a thunderbolt exploded in front of her. Her heart was roaring. Why? Why is it always Ling Ling? Humph. She just has a pair of full breasts but has no brains. Why could she always keep a step ahead in all things? That's, Ling Ling's face was as red as a ripe apple. She quietly approached My Lan's ear and murmured, telling her the whole thing. Oh my God. My Lan had to cover her mouth to keep her composure. It wasn't just kissing, they had done more than that. They even. My Lan couldn't help but stare at Ling Ling's full breasts with a fierce look. Was it all because of this pair of breasts? Damn it. SSR. It's terrible. Even Mai, who is so quiet and steady, has been hurt by this weapon too. She didn't believe that Mai would do that to this brainless mascot for no reason at all. Sure enough, the crux of everything was that pair of weapons. Not only men but also women would feel jealousy of that pair of weapons, which was representing the wonderful future of life and the source of breeding hope. My Lan. What should I do? Ling Ling looked at her closest friend with tears in her eyes. In her eyes, My Lan was always the good secretary of the Starwing Knights, who could always help her solve her troubles neatly. Never mind. You like Mai, don't you? My Lan took a deep breath and restrained her impulses to beat Ling Ling even more senseless, who took her undeserved gain for granted. Why are the differences between people so great? She knew how many members of the Starwing Knights would feel raging jealousy for what happened to Ling Ling. My Lan was sure that to be intimate with Mai was a dream that every member of the Starwing Knights had ever had, because My Lan herself was one of them. She didn't remember how many nights. She was tightly embracing the black hair charm and immersed herself in the girl's fantasy world. Ling Ling, I'll make sure again that you are my enemy. You lucky, damn SSR. I like Mai, but I also want to get married. Compared to My Lan, Ling Ling looked more like the one with common sense. Who are you going to marry? My Lan looked at Ling Ling with a look of, is your head broken? Isn't the Starwing Knights the guardian of Mai, and everyone has regarded protecting Mai as their lifetime mission? Why do you still have the illusion of getting married someday, Ling Ling? Isn't that strange? Sure enough, that's the case with big breasts and no brains. Don't be afraid. It's a very, very happy thing that Mai likes you. My Lan stretched out her chest, and then instantly found the gap between herself and Ling Ling, showing a very depressed expression on her face. Why is there such a monster like SSR in this world? Isn't everyone's N-cup very good? That would be a peaceful world. But in that case, I can only marry Mai. Ling Ling lay in My Lan's arms with a tangled expression on her face. Idiot, My Lan muttered. If she had such a happy annoyance, she did not know how happy she would be. So, just in case, I'll confirm it with you. My Lan still can't believe that Mai would do that to Ling Ling. That was the perfect incarnation in the minds of all the girls of the Starwing Knights. Mai, if she was a man, she would be a perfect gentleman. Something must have gone wrong. Did Ling Ling make a mistake on her own impulse and kiss Mai forcibly, then subconsciously mistook it? Compared with the possibility that Mai forcibly kissed Ling Ling, My Lan felt that this probability was higher. After all, a fool like Ling Ling could do anything and never think that she was wrong. There was no doubt that Ling Ling, the favored mascot of the Starwing Knights, was a big, brainless, silly fool. Now Mai is a little weird. My Lan, you have to be careful. Ling Ling grasped My Lan's hand with some fear. Today, Mai bullied her so much that she was still worried now. Never mind, I'm here, absolutely no problem. My Lan shrugged her shoulders in disapproval and held Ling Ling's hand. Compared to Ling Ling, who always looked for trouble, she believed in Mai, who was more quiet and elegant. Even if today's Mai was really weird, then maybe it isn't a bad thing, right? In Yunxi's room, Mai lay on the bed with an ungraceful gesture, staring at the ceiling. She couldn't sleep. She was completely sleepless. The reason was simple, because she was not used to sleeping alone. The three sisters, Star Thunder, Starfire, and Star Snow, always slept together from birth. No matter when it was, they all moved together and slept together. Now, she was alone. Although she was on the familiar bed, usually this time, she was taking care of her sisters until they were asleep before she closed her eyes. A person's habits couldn't be changed in a day or two, moreover, it was an inherent habit since her birth. She habitually stretched out her hands, but no one was around her, which made my Star Thunder feel unhappy. I can't sleep, I can't sleep. I still have to wait for one more night before Starfire takes control of Master's body. What should I do? For my Star Thunder, who first slept alone, this was a huge trouble. Dong, dong. Outside the room, there was a gentle knock on the door. From the breathing rhythm, it should be a person Mai was familiar with. She got up a little happier, and then opened the door and saw Ling Ling, as well as a slightly strange figure. Well, good night, Mai. There's something Ling Ling wants to say to you. Mai Lan looked at Mai. She was so nervous that she could hardly speak. Mai is special. Mai is the core of the Starwing Knights. She is everybody's god. There was no one in the Starwing Knights didn't that like Mai. Mai gave the miracle to them. Compared to Ling Ling, who was silly and didn't even know what this miracle represented. She knew how much she has benefited from it. The ultimate gratitude was unable to express in words, eventually turned into a kind of unswerving faith. Mai, for her, was such an important and unique person. Mai. Today, compared to Mai Lan's restraint, Ling Ling is more straightforward. After Mai Lan's explanation, she finally understood. I really can't get married now. It was better to say that apart from marrying Mai, she had no way to choose. Looking at Ling Ling and Mai Lan, suddenly, Mai's eyes brightened up. Sleepless. Because I'm not sleeping together with my sisters. Sisters are now in the body of our master and cannot come out. In front of me, there are Ling Ling and Mai Lan. Since I can't sleep, I should go and find a way to get myself to sleep. The answer is right in front of me. Without a second thought, Mai, Star Thunder, reached out her left hand, trying to grab Mai Lan's little hand. Gee. Mai Lan looked so flattered, as if she was a pure virgin who was just chosen by the emperor. Her right hand stretched out, originally was trying to grasp Ling Ling's hand, but in the middle of the way, it grabbed another place by mistake. Ahoo! Ling Ling looked at the hand that grabbed her breasts with a look of protest, but there was no real struggle. Rather, she moved closer to Mai and let her breasts change into various shapes in Mai's small hands. Mai gently led the two to her bed. This, Ling Ling blushed and looked almost drunk. I'm not ready yet. Mai Lan stuttered and tightened all over. Had she known this earlier, she would most definitely have changed into her best clothes, showing her most beautiful side in front of Mai. Ling Ling didn't lie this time. Today's Mai was a bit weird, as if the sense of distance in the past was suddenly and completely eliminated all at once. However, she didn't hate this weird Mai at all. Or rather to say, she wanted to thank God. Shuffle. Mai easily guided the two secretaries of the Starwing Knights to her broad bed. This big bed had been specially modified by Maya. It was big enough for 4 girls to lie on it together, and it was a little exaggerated for Mai's figure. Usually, even with Star Thunder, Starfire, and Star Snow on the bed, it was still too large. Now, it seemed that Maya had a pretty good forward-looking thought, because at this moment, there were 3 beautiful girls on the bed. On the far left was a black-haired maid. In the middle was a beautiful secretary who wore a pair of black-framed glasses, with a stupefied look on her face. On the right was Miss Mascot, whose face was red and the mountains on her chest were heaving alarmingly. It was a too beautiful scene of 3 beautiful girls laying on the same bed. However, distinct from this harmonious scene, the psychological activities of the 3 people were quite different. Well, the hand feel is good. She's good, and she's good too. Sure enough, it's better to sleep with others. That was Mai's idea, Star Thunder's idea. What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? I mustn't run away. I mustn't run away. I mustn't run away. It's time for a decisive battle, and if I run away, I'll regret it all my life. That was Mai Lan's idea. Whoa, Today's my is really strange. I'm caught again, my chest felt strange and hot, as if my body doesn't belong to myself. This is the heart voice of Ling Ling, who unfortunately fell into the hands of my again. According to her habit of taking care of her sisters, my constantly adjusted my Lan and Ling Ling's positions, playing with their bodies. To Star Thunder, the big sister of the three sisters, it was a natural thing to take care of her sisters sleeping beside her. To my Lan and Ling Ling, it was a major issue of life to be played with by my Ling Ling. I wronged you, very rare, my Lan, the secretary of the Starwing Knights, the person who always thought that Ling Ling was too stupid, apologized to Ling Ling. My is not just strange today. She is behaving very, very weird. The Mai she knew wouldn't have such physical intimacy easily. Let alone sleeping in the same bed, she didn't even take a bath together with any other girls. What's going on now? Did Ling Ling accidentally give Mai something strange? Considering Ling Ling's silly head, the possibility was very great. Oh, I told you. Mai is strange today. Now, we are both not going to get married. Looking at Mai taking off her clothes skillfully, Ling Ling looked at Mai Lan with tears in her eyes, showing a look of looking for help. Mai smiled and gently pressed her hand on Ling Ling's chest, stretching out her little tongue just like what she did in the daytime, licking the snow-white peaks. Soon afterward, an attractive fragrance spread around in the room, and Ling Ling had almost buried her head in the pillow. Why? Why did it happen? I haven't got married yet. Why is there such a thing in my breasts? Whoa! This is... Mai Lan also saw the secret of Ling Ling. She was so surprised that she could hardly close her mouth. She was 100% sure that Ling Ling, like herself and other members of the Starwing Knights, was a pure virgin. But how could any adolescence girl in this world have so much delicious snow-white milk in her body? Is it because of her physique? Is it because of the difference of physique? Is it because of the intimacy with Mai, her breasts naturally secreted this milk? Don't look at me. Don't look at me. I can't get married. I can't get married at all. In Mai's room, the wailing voice of a young girl echoed. After having absorbed the nutrients supplied from Ling Ling's breasts, Mai raised her head satisfactorily. She soothed Ling Ling, who was in a convulsion and sobbing, giving her a passionate kiss. Well, as the big sister of the three sisters, it wasn't strange at all, was it? Not only that, but she also had the habit of licking her sisters' bodies from top to bottom before going to bed, which was her duty in place of her mother. Whoa! Mai bullied me again. Mai Lan, help me. Ling Ling raised her arms in surrender. She gasped and her clothes were ragged, just like what she looked like in the secret garden of the Starwing Knights during the day. Unfortunately, instead of extending a helping hand, Mai Lan's face turned red with envy. Seemingly Mai noticed Mai Lan's expectant look, she smiled and helped her take off her glasses, then stretched out her tongue and gently licked the corners of her eyes. I can die now without anything to regret. Mai Lan looked more weak and helpless than usual after her glasses were removed. She didn't look like the strong woman she always showed in front of everyone at all. Her clear big black eyes, scattered braids, slender hands and legs, making her look like an orchid in the valley with an unspeakable glamour. Especially her cute and shy appearance, it was hard to believe that she was the secretary of the Starwing Knights, Mai Lan, who always looked strong in the eyes of the public. In the final analysis, the so-called temperament was just a disguise for gaining advantages. In front of her god, the person she loved, Mai Lan was just an ordinary girl when her glasses were taken off from her eyes. In front of Mai, and they were on the same bed together, she could no longer hide her feelings in the deepest side of her heart, falling into Mai's arms. Closing her eyes, she felt the warm touch on her cheeks, as if she had come to heaven. No, it's not just as if, this is heaven. The world of bliss. Thank God, thank the Starwing Knights, thank Ling Ling. It's really a good thing to have taken part in the entrance exam of the Sword Palace at that time. Mai looked at Mai Lan and smiled. Naughty Ling Ling and shy Mai Lan, they looked really like her two sisters. Moreover, Master's body seems to be very, very accustomed to such intimate movements, coupled with the fact that she is already used to spoiling her sisters before going to bed. Isn't the whole thing naturally going to develop at this point? So, let us be more intimate. Chapter 476, The Invitation from the Roses, 1. Mai opened her eyes and looked around with curiosity, looking at the world which was totally different from what she had seen in the past. Today was the day Starfire replaced her sister, Star Thunder. She was responsible for controlling her master's body today. She scratched her cheeks with her hands, which still made her feel unaccustomed. Mai, Starfire, looked at the two girls around her, licking her lips involuntarily. Well, according to the memory she inherited from her sister last night, if she was hungry, she could demand sweet milk from one of the girls. Aho! Ling Ling, who was being raided by Mai, restlessly covered her full breasts with her arms, but still couldn't avoid the destined result, contributing her sweet milk. Damn! Looking at this scene, Mai Lan suffered a heavy blow. She strengthened her resolve of accomplishing the biggest dream of most girls of the Starwing Knights. SSR. 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 After enjoying the sweet milk, Mai happily pushed open the door and looked around with her innocent, curious eyes. Everything around her was fresh to her. Exquisite wooden furniture, chandeliers, evergreen plants, and oil paintings from great artists. Everyone had to admit that the girls' dorm of the Sword Palace was a topmost dorm, and the rooms of the girls of the Starwing Knights were even better. Of course, it was because of Who Are You. These Western-style furniture and oil paintings weren't that easy to be bought with money. It showed the true strength of a noble family, not what a parvenu could learn by imitating. Compared to her mature and steady elder sister, Star Thunder, Starfire's character was more cheerful and carefree. She was interested in everything, touching here and there from time to time. If it wasn't because she was using Mai's body, maybe she had left a lot of paw prints on the corridor. Until she heard the figures of others, her behavior was finally somewhat restrained. In front of the public, you must never expose your habit of being a dog. Smile. Keep your smile. This was what her big sister, Star Thunder, urged to her again and again. Sitting in front of the table, Mai looked at the dazzling breakfast in front of her eyes. She could not help but sniff. After enjoying Ling Ling's milk, her stomach became hungrier. What will my sister do at this time? Based on the moves in her memory, Mai, Starfire, tried to pick up a piece of cake with a knife and put it into her mouth. The next moment, her eyes brightened up. It's delicious. It's delicious. It is actually such a wonderful thing to enjoy food in the form of a human. Whoa. I will be undernourished. After a while, Ling Ling came. She bit a piece of fresh papaya and looked at Mai with a complaining look. Since yesterday, she had been asked by Mai for all kinds of things. She didn't know if it was her imagination, but now, she felt that her chest was hot, as if she would secrete some substances that a girl should never have secreted. Eat more, Ling Ling. Strange. Are your breasts a little bigger? Mai Lan looked at Ling Ling with a look of jealousy, and she swore that it was definitely not her imagination. Ling Ling's breasts indeed had become bigger. Really? Maybe they were rubbed too much, so they become a bit bigger. Ling Ling looked at her breasts in confusion. She did feel that her breasts were somewhat uncomfortable, as if her body was developing rapidly. I heard that, when you are a mother, they will really become bigger. Mai Lan bit a piece of bread with a fierce look, crunching the golden, soft bread with her scallop-like teeth. Oh, my God, they are already so big, and they are still growing. Why is the world so unfair? But I haven't got married. Oh, Ling Ling held her breasts in her hands with tears in her eyes. She looked really sad. No. I have to endure it. Enduring for a while, you shall appease the dispute. Retreating a step, you will get a broadened mind. Isn't Ling Ling showing off herself? Isn't she? Mai Lan was forced to restrain her strong impulse to roar. Your troubles are the ultimate fantasy of most of the girls of the Starwing Knights, okay? You don't know what you have, Miss SSR. Other members of the Starwing Knights listened to the conversation between the two secretaries with a confused look. Wait, what happened? What does she mean undernourished? Doesn't Ling Ling look pretty good now? Wait a minute. What happened last night? Rubbed by who? Don't underestimate the private intelligence network between girls. Someone soon broke the news. I saw it. In the morning. A girl who got up early this morning raised her hand with a nervous look. What do you see? Tell me. The girl's intuition was very sharp and sensitive, From the abnormal atmosphere between Ling Ling and Mai Lan, they all vaguely felt something. Especially from their blushed faces and the truth that they were sitting beside Mai, it was quite noticeable. Mai Lan and Ling Ling, this morning, they came out from Mai's room, said the girl who witnessed this, and her face turned red. She saw Ling Ling and Mai Lan running out from Mai's room with their clothes in disarray. They didn't even wear shoes. Especially Ling Ling, on her disheveled clothes, there was even strange traces of white liquid, and she even smelt a vaguely sweet smell of milk. What happened last night in Mai's room? This wasn't just her question, but also the question all girls of the Starwing Knights wanted to know. Oh gosh, have Ling Ling and Mai Lan had done something to Mai? Regardless of Ling Ling, why did Mai Lan also get in on this? She isn't such a person. The two stayed a whole night with Mai. Rubbed too much. Combined with various clues, countless not-for-children scenarios appeared in these adolescent girls' minds. A lot of girls blushed when they imagined them. Mai was enjoying her breakfast. She sensed their eyes on them and put into practice what she learned from her sister, giving them a big bright smile. Smiling. Why-ho. Oh gosh. These girls looked at Mai's smile and emitted cute sounds from their mouths. The Starwing Knights and the atmosphere was still full the smell of fragrant flowers today. Mai opened her eyes and looked around with curiosity, looking at the world which was totally different from what she had seen in the past. Today was the day Starfire replaced her sister, Star Thunder. She was responsible for controlling her master's body today. She scratched her cheeks with her hands, which still made her feel unaccustomed. Mai, Starfire, looked at the two girls around her, licking her lips involuntarily. Well, according to the memory she inherited from her sister last night, if she was hungry, she could demand sweet milk from one of the girls. Aho! Ling Ling, who was being raided by Mai, restlessly covered her full breasts with her arms, but still couldn't avoid the destined result, contributing her sweet milk. Damn! Looking at this scene, Mai Lan suffered a heavy blow. She strengthened her resolve of accomplishing the biggest dream of most girls of the Starwing Knights. SSR. After enjoying the sweet milk, Mai happily pushed open the door and looked around with her innocent, curious eyes. Everything around her was fresh to her. Exquisite wooden furniture, chandeliers, evergreen plants, and oil paintings from great artists. Everyone had to admit that the girls' dorm of the Sword Palace was a topmost dorm, and the rooms of the girls of the Starwing Knights were even better. Of course, it was because of who are you. These Western-style furniture and oil paintings weren't that easy to be bought with money. It showed the true strength of a noble family, not what a parvenu could learn by imitating. Compared to her mature and steady elder sister, Star Thunder, Starfire's character was more cheerful and carefree. She was interested in everything, touching here and there from time to time. If it wasn't because she was using Mai's body, maybe she had left a lot of paw prints on the corridor. Until she heard the figures of others, her behavior was finally somewhat restrained. In front of the public, you must never expose your habit of being a dog. Smile. Keep your smile. This was what her big sister, Star Thunder, urged to her again and again. Sitting in front of the table, Mai looked at the dazzling breakfast in front of her eyes. She could not help but sniff. After enjoying Ling Ling's milk, her stomach became hungrier. What will my sister do at this time? Based on the moves in her memory, Mai, Starfire, tried to pick up a piece of cake with a knife and put it into her mouth. The next moment, her eyes brightened up. It's delicious. It's delicious. It is actually such a wonderful thing to enjoy food in the form of a human. Whoa. I will be undernourished. After a while, Ling Ling came. She bit a piece of fresh papaya and looked at Mai with a complaining look. Since yesterday, she had been asked by Mai for all kinds of things. She didn't know if it was her imagination, but now, she felt that her chest was hot, as if she would secrete some substances that a girl should never have secreted. Eat more, Ling Ling. Strange. Are your breasts a little bigger? Mai Lan looked at Ling Ling with a look of jealousy, and she swore that it was definitely not her imagination. Ling Ling's breasts indeed had become bigger. Really? Maybe they were rubbed too much, so they become a bit bigger. Ling Ling looked at her breasts in confusion. She did feel that her breasts were somewhat uncomfortable, as if her body was developing rapidly. I heard that, when you are a mother, they will really become bigger. My Lan bit a piece of bread with a fierce look, crunching the golden, soft bread with her scallop-like teeth. Oh, my God, they are already so big, and they are still growing. Why is the world so unfair? But I haven't got married. Oh, Ling Ling held her breasts in her hands with tears in her eyes. She looked really sad. No. I have to endure it. Enduring for a while, you shall appease the dispute. Retreating a step, you will get a broadened mind. Isn't Ling Ling showing off herself? Isn't she? My Lan was forced to restrain her strong impulse to roar. Your troubles are the ultimate fantasy of most of the girls of the Starwing Knights, okay? You don't know what you have, Miss SSR. Other members of the Starwing Knights listened to the conversation between the two secretaries with a confused look. Wait, what happened? What does she mean undernourished? Doesn't Ling Ling look pretty good now? Wait a minute. What happened last night? Rubbed by who? Don't underestimate the private intelligence network between girls. Someone soon broke the news. I saw it. In the morning. A girl who got up early this morning raised her hand with a nervous look. What do you see? Tell me. The girl's intuition was very sharp and sensitive. From the abnormal atmosphere between Ling Ling and My Lan, they all vaguely felt something. Especially from their blushed faces and the truth that they were sitting beside Mai, it was quite noticeable. My Lan and Ling Ling, this morning, they came out from Mai's room, said the girl who witnessed this, and her face turned red. She saw Ling Ling and My Lan running out from Mai's room with their clothes in disarray. They didn't even wear shoes. Especially Ling Ling, on her disheveled clothes, there was even strange traces of white liquid, and she even smelt a vaguely sweet smell of milk. What happened last night in Mai's room? This wasn't just her question, but also the question all girls of the Starwing Knights wanted to know. Oh gosh, have Ling Ling and My Lan had done something to Mai? Regardless of Ling Ling, why did My Lan also get in on this? She isn't such a person. The two stayed a whole night with Mai. Rubbed too much. Combined with various clues, countless not-for-children scenarios appeared in these adolescent girls' minds. A lot of girls blushed when they imagined them. Mai was enjoying her breakfast. She sensed their eyes on them and put into practice what she learned from her sister, giving them a big bright smile. Smiling. Yay-ho. Oh gosh. These girls looked at Mai's smile and emitted cute sounds from their mouths. The Starwing Knights and the atmosphere was still full the smell of fragrant flowers today. In the morning. In the mist, Mai was walking along the path surrounded by green trees. Just like her sister, Mai, Starfire, also didn't know why she came to this place, as if it was a natural habit of the body itself. Pushing aside the bushes around the path and walking into the mist, Mai finally came to a medicinal field where there were cultivated a lot of pink plants. It was the secret garden of the Starwing Knights. However, it wasn't Lulu in the medicinal field this time but a golden-hair female knight whose body basked in the sun. Mai. Who are you? Smiled like a princess. She stretched out her hand to Mai. She wouldn't make the same mistake again. Since she had confirmed that Mai was in a strange state now, it would become the best opportunity. Lulu and Ling Ling, the things happened before were all under her monitor. About the news in the girls' dorm this morning, she also received the report from other noble girls of the Starwing Knights. This was her privilege as the leader. Because everything was too fast, she even felt a bit flat-footed. Her mind wasn't as simple as Ling Ling, so she wouldn't move without a thought. Neither was she as apprehensive as My Lan, who thought too much, which conversely made her lose the chance. As the princess of Hua family, the leader of the Starwing Knights, her individual talent and leadership ability were both the number one amongst all girls. She obtained it through her personal charm. Starting from the most trivial things, she never relaxed her vigilance and always played her role well. No matter who she faced, she could always switch her two relationships with others. One was her relationship as a friend of the girls of the Starwing Knights. The other one was her relationship as the leader of the girls of the Starwing Knights. She could stroll around the streets together with noble girls, talking about the latest trends of the endless gods' domains. She could also practice her sword together with civilian girls, pointing out their shortcomings in the meantime. Compared to Xiao Cao, who was too devoted to her limit practice, which made her rare to appear in front of the public recently, her leadership was the biggest reason that she was voted by everyone. Maybe someday, Xiao Cao's sword skill would surpass her sword skill, becoming the strongest in the Starwing Knights. After all, she was the hardest working female swordsman that was recognized by everyone. Even so, as the princess of the Hua family, she was more suitable to be the leader. Her white golden rose bloodline didn't stand for the strongest bloodline of fighting alone, on the contrary, it was a bloodline of leadership, the royal bloodline that could unite 100% of the power of the team she was leading. Her sword skill was from Shinra, a holy crossed sword created by her legend-ranked ancestor, a glorious white golden rose knight. It was a sword of holy light, which wasn't the strongest, but stood for glory and hope that could bring victory. The old bloodline granted her a strong personality and the will of pride, and her sword combined the two advantages of defense and attack, was the most stabilized crossed sword skill. Her pursuit was to be a perfect knight. She clearly understood the meanings of humility, integrity, compassion, bravery, justice, sacrifice, honor, and soul. Just like the Knight's Creed, she made the oath to her sword. I will be kind to the weak. I will be brave against the strong. I will fight all who do wrong. I will fight for those who cannot fight. I will help those who call me for help. I will harm no woman. I will help my brother. I will be true to my friend. I will be faithful in love. The Knight's Creed was what Hua Yu vowed to conform to in her life. Because of the 8 virtues of the Knight, although she knew what happened here before, she wouldn't let anyone know. Not only so, but she would also help them keep this secret because this was her duty as their leader. However, just slightly, when Mai is in this special mood, I can be more intimate with her. Can't I? I will only do this one time, and never have a next time. The princess of the Hua family won't take advantage of others' difficulties, therefore, this is just a simple date. Hua Yu convinced herself in her heart. Mai, Starfire, blinked her eyes. She didn't know what she should do at this time. According to the memory left by my sister, I should do nothing and my master's body would react naturally. Yes, this is it. Just let master's body move following its instinct. Patter, patter. Mai, Starfire, naturally walked to Hua Yu and stretched out her hand. Good morning, oh. Hua Yu was going to hold Mai's hands. Beyond her expectation, Mai's hand directly bypassed her hand and put it on her full breasts. Pinching. Pinching. Mai. Hua Yu's face instantly turned red. Her hand grasped Mai's hand. As a lady, it's not good to do this. Mai, Starfire, innocently looked at Hua Yu, whose body shivered with both a funny and annoyed look on her face. Did I do something wrong? Isn't this the place that master's body will do this thing and that thing with the girls he likes? Now, Hua Yu confirmed that Mai had become different after practicing the closed-mouth Zen. Her point of view was different from Mai Lan. As a civilian girl who was born in a common family, Mai Lan had natural disbelief of others. Even though she was a member of the Starwing Knights and she loved the Knights, as the secretary, she cared about details too much. She wanted to control everything in her hands, including the accounts and logistics of the Starwing Knights, and even all information of every girl. Hua Yu was different. As the leader, what she paid attention to was in a higher level. Of course, a healthy organization needed members like Mai Lan, who was willing to devote herself into it, and a mascot like Ling Ling was also demanded. She was the leader, her duty was to make the best use of their talents. Therefore, compared to Mai Lan, who focused on the financial expenditure of the Starwing Knights, Hua Yu paid more attention to the interpersonal relationships between different girls, especially when it was related to Mai. Mai was the core of the Starwing Knights, the Knights was formed for her. Why did this newly formed organization have such a high cohesive affinity? In the few days after they arrived at the Sword Palace, a lot of forces had made various commitments to almost all members of the Starwing Knights. They didn't even hide their intention of undermining the foundation of the Knights. However, no matter what the force was, including the forces even Hua Yu felt difficult to deal with, none of them had succeeded. None of the girls chose to leave. Even though they knew several forces were supported by legend-ranked people, These forces were far stronger than the knights. A girl's organization was like playing house in the eyes of a lot of people. There was only one reason that could explain it. Because Mai was here. If Mai chose to leave the Sword Palace, none of the girls of the Starwing Knights wouldn't follow her footsteps. Since when had they become so intimate with Mai and regarded the black-haired maid as their god? As if there was an invisible thread that was connecting all the girls of the knights together. And the thread was becoming more and more sturdy as time went by. At first, Mai was just an unknown girl whose appearance fitted the profile of the tales of the black-haired girl, which made them nerve themselves to ask for a strand of hair from her. Now, the lucky charm made of Mai's black hair had become the holy badge of the Starwing Knights. Only the people who had the lucky charm was allowed to join the Starwing Knights. Mai, is it hard to practice the closed-mouth Zen? Looking at Mai's innocent face, who are you made a guess in her heart. Secret skills like closed-mouth Zen, as far as she knew, they needed the practices to undermine their 5 senses to strengthen their mentalities. Once a person started to practice the secret skill, the person couldn't give up halfway, otherwise, the person may go mad. When practicing the secret skill, various temptations would naturally appear, and once the practicer failed to resist the temptation, something terrible would happen. In a word, even to dervishes, it was one of the most difficult limit practices. Mai, Starfire, looked at Hua Yu's hand with curiosity. She naturally stretched out her tongue and licked her hand. Her small tongue touched Hua Yu's tender skin. Although she had seen this in the videos the Holy Beetle recorded, when it really happened to her, Hua Yu still couldn't help but emit a light groan. The current Mai is too cute. No wonder that Lulu, Ling Ling, and Mai Lan couldn't withstand this kind of intimacy. Even her, when she looked at the puppy like Mai, she had zero resistance against her behavior. If it wasn't because her senses warned her that if this went further, she would recommit the same mistake like Lulu, Ling Ling, and Mai Lan, she would be immersed in this sweet trap and fall into Mai's arms. No. I'm the leader of the Starwing Knights. I can't do this when Mai is in this special state. Mai, let's cut class today. After thinking for a while, Hua Yu asked in a calm tone. Yes, how can I waste this valuable time, making the same mistake like Lulu, Ling Ling, and Mai Lan? Since the opportunity appeared, I must carefully plan it and use it in a more effective manner. It's a rare, wonderful time that I can ask for anything from Mai and won't be afraid of being refused. The time for love is valuable to girls. Mai, Starfire, smiled and naturally moved closer to Hua Yu. The body instinctively found her mouth and kissed her on her lips. There was a kind of sweet, soft, pleasant smell. Starfire thought that she had slightly understood why Master and my sister likes this smell. Mai, do you agree? Immersing herself in Mai's deep kiss, Hua Yu smiled. Everything is under my control. Cutting class was a rare thing in the Sword Palace, because in non-holiday times, the formal disciples were rarely allowed let out of the Sword Palace. All of the formal disciples were the best geniuses in their homeland. Arguably, the disciples who could come into the White Lotus Sword Palace were already destined to be the people above people. It was hard to imagine that these elites would cut class. Moreover, it was next to impossible to avoid the protection magic ward of the Sword Palace. However, Hua Yu still successfully achieved it. Compared to Mai Lan, who followed the rules like a book, learning how to use rules and form her own rules was also a privilege of superordinate people. Moreover, none of the 8 virtues of a knight said that she couldn't cut class. Hua Yu smiled, looking at Mai, who was climbing over the wall together with her. If other people saw that the elegant leader of the Starwing Knights was climbing over the wall, they would be petrified. Why did she know the method of how to pass through the protection magic ward of the Sword Palace, which was called the Absolute Shield? It was because of an accident. Her Holy Beetle accidentally saw Mai's secret, the secret that she could freely go out of and into the Sword Palace. Of course, as the leader of the Starwing Knights, she would also keep this secret of Mai's in her heart. A secret was naturally a valuable resource. Compared to Mai Lan's behavior of controlling all of the details, Hua Yu's method was softer and more effective. It was a knowledge that civilians could never learn from books. Hua Yu just didn't expect that she would use this secret now. The shield of the Sword Palace, which was said that could block the attack of the legend rank, naturally exposed a big hole in front of them, letting them walk out of the secret garden with ease. Pang! Pang! Even who are you, when she passed through the protection shield which was said to be connected with the defense system of the Sky Tower, her heart couldn't stop from pounding fast. Because rules can't be broken, the feeling was so addictive when trying to break it. The more she complied with the rules, the more pleasure she would feel at this moment. In order to have a date with Mai, she had violated 13 rules of the Sword Palace, which was sufficient to force her to drop out of the Sword Palace. Because of Mai, she had the confidence to challenge these rules, and she believed that what she did could be forgiven. Because Mai was special. No, it wasn't just a delusion of the girls of the Starwing Knights, because Mai was really unique. In the eyes of the public, they would be shocked by Hua Hua's strong power she showed, and the strong potential of the Starwing Knights. However, only very few people realized that Mai was the most special one. Only when looking at Mai, the invincible Hua Hua's face would turn red. The entire Starwing Knights was formed for Mai. If Hua Hua was the golden sun in the sky, then Mai was the stars in the night sky. She wasn't as bright as the sun, however, only the people who really knew what the Star River was would understand how great she was. Standing in the corner of the wall outside of the Sword Palace, Hua Yu held Mai's hand and walked casually in the protection shield. As the Sword Palace that once cultivated a sky sword, the defense system of the White Lotus Sword Palace was far stronger than other lower-level sword domains. It not only had the Sky Tower that shouldn't be owned by a lower-level sword domain, but also was protected by a legend-ranked shield. However, the shield that was said that could block legend-ranked attacks totally turned a blind eye to Mai and Hua Yu, letting them walk inside it freely. After a while, they walked out of the legend-ranked protection shield. Even though she had confirmed it a long time ago, Hua Yu still felt as if she was dreaming after experiencing it personally. Mai, you, who are you? Where are you from, and where are you going? Will you suddenly disappear someday and go to a place we don't know? How many secrets do you have? Hua Yu asked with curiosity and pinched Mai's face. The longer she stayed with Mai, the more secrets of Mai she would find, and the more charm she would feel from Mai. Hua Yu felt that she was a little bug trapped by sweet honey, and the more sweet honey she tasted, the deeper she would be trapped into it. Looking at Hua Yu's scorching eyes, Mai, Starfire, smiled and moved close to her, trying to kiss her again. No, not this place. Hua Yu emitted a cute sound but didn't really resist Mai's lips. Since I want to date Mai, naturally, I need to pay a price. It was a basic rule in all gods' domains. In a basement not far away from the Sword Palace, a pair of bloody eyes suddenly opened wide. I smell it. It's my dream lover's smell. I must be with her. She came out from that place. Roar. Baa. A snow-white paw heavily knocked on the head of the estrus big black dog. Now the black dog looked very pitiful. Its 4 limbs still hadn't grown out, looking like a black preserved pork hanging in the air. What? Why do I have this appearance? Who am I? And where am I? The black demon dog emitted an ear-piercing roar after finding that it was no different from being disabled, which annoyed the evil god who was repairing its body and give it a hit on this idiot's body. Oh. No. No. Don't hit that place. The black demon dog instantly cried like a castrated dog. Its body curled up. Baa. The evil god knocked on the black demon dog's head and prompted it to look around. In the gloomy basement, a snow-white sheep-like creature looked at a big black dog-like creature that was hung in the air. This evil scene looked weird and unreal. Adding the blood magic circle of sacrifice on the ground, it was full of a creepy sense. Hoi, hoi, Qumran, the prince of black demon dogs, the descendant of Cerberus, looked at its mutilated body and puffed heavily. The nightmare scenes flashed through its mind. After accepting the light of wisdom from the White Lotus secret treasure, it met its first love soon after. It should have been a remarkable day, but because of that damn maid, it was killed and sliced into pieces. Its heart was pierced through by a sharp sword, and at the end of its mind, something dragged it into the deep underground world. It was even deeper than hell and as endless as the abyss. A snow-white sheep foot stepped onto its body. It saw an evil eye. It was revived, then died quickly. Its body was twisted by some great power, recovered, broke again, and recovered again. The pain was even 100 times crueler than death itself. I revived. Qumran. I'm back. The black demon dog didn't know how to learn from its pain. Its mind had just recovered and it immediately barked frantically. Baa. The feet of a snow-white sheep trampled on Qumran's body again, forcibly letting it how to zip its mouth. Hiss. Qumran gasped. Its 2 forepaws instantly recovered and it jumped to its feet. The wounds all over its body incredibly disappeared at this moment. Its body was covered by a deep, dark black mist. There was no trace that it was killed by the black-haired maid. Not only that, but the newborn body was also stronger and more powerful than its old body. Even the most feeble joints of its bones were covered by thick bone shells, which had become far harder than steel. It was the sign of the 3rd stage of the black demon dog's evolution. From the beginning, the black demon dog was invented as a kind of war machine. Once it reached the 3rd stage, it could turn into a super unit on the battlefield, massacring the armies of its enemy. In this form, its combat power was far stronger than common hero-ranked demons. The 3rd stage black demon dog, this was the title of the black demon dogs in this stage. Starting from this stage, the black demon dogs would evolve into different forms based on the enemies they swallowed. Bloodthirsty black demon dog, whose characteristics were to attack and bite its enemies frantically. Steel black demon dog, whose body was as strong as steel. Wisdom black demon dog, who had a smart head and was good at commanding other demons. In the 1st and 2nd stage, black demon dogs were just a kind of cannon fodder that were used to consume the power of the enemy. The 3rd stage black demon dogs were really the elites of the demon army. In the war against demons, countless hero-ranked people died under the paws of them. As the prince of the black demon dogs, Qumran's bloodline was perfect. Its body had all the advantages of other black demon dogs. Its teeth were sharper than bloodthirsty black demon dog, its defense was stronger than steel black demon dog, and its wisdom was much higher than any wisdom black demon dogs. It's time for hunting. Climbing up from the ground, Qumran looked at its new body and howled. It was going to go looking for its dream lover again. Baa. Again, the evil god trampled on its body with an unpleasant bleat. Master Evil God said that you are looking for death if you just go out like that. Child San Quan looked at the howling black demon dog and shook his head. Even though it had obtained wisdom, it was still a dog. Although it had the bloodline of Cerberus, it didn't know how to restrain its desire. This kind of cannon fodder can't be of much use. Let go of me. Let go of me. My light of life, my golden princess. She is waiting for me. I will save her from that bad human. Roa. The whole basement was going to collapse because of the black demon dog's struggle. After entering the 3rd form, Qumran's strength was stronger than most hero-ranked humans, and its body was far harder than any humans. Its paws easily scratched open the ground. Looking at this, Child San Quan couldn't help that his eyelids were twitching. It seemed that the notorious black demon dog race wasn't just the evil race in a fairy book. Judging from its strength, it could probably kill 1,000 green hippos easily. None of the hero-ranked humans could be compared with it. The difference between 1 unit strength and 100 unit strength couldn't be filled easily. For example, if person A's strength was 1 unit, and person B's strength was 2 unit, it didn't mean that 2 person A was match for 1 person B. In this case, person B could easily beat down 10 person A. In the war against demons, countless races were eliminated by the black demon dog race, and from the mountain of flesh and blood, finally, the monster called Cerberus was born. As the most terrible legend rank creature in the war against demons, Cerberus was called the God-Eater Beast. Like the 3 deicide sky swords, it really ate so-called immortal gods. Yes, it didn't eat just a god, but a lot of gods, including the legend-ranked gods of the Western Gods domain and even the evil gods of the demons' camp. Qumran inherited the bloodline of this god-eater beast. No wonder that the great evil god, Tlahuizcalpantecutli, thought that it had a high value, and revived it using a taboo magic of sacrifice. It wasn't easy to find the animals that could be used in the magic of sacrifice in this remote sword domain. Fortunately, because of the White Lotus secret treasure, a lot of common animals evolved, and they narrowly met the requirements of the magic of sacrifice. Now, the magic of sacrifice just successfully accomplished, but this black demon dog was going to look for its death again? So stupid. Although Child San Quan thought so, he wouldn't say it out loud. Anyway, this dog was a fool, but it had high value. He was looking forward to using it as a stud dog to develop an army of black demon dogs. Since you are blessed by the great Tlahui's Kalpantikutli, you are our most honorable guest. Tell me your trouble, Qumran, I can help you. Child San Quan smiled and planned to humbug this brainless dog. Under Child San Quan's confident gaze, Qumran hesitated for a while, then told him its annoyance. Oh, I see, you like that golden dog, however, its master didn't let you get close to her, and killed you. You want to revenge, you want to seize back your golden princess from her. Child San Quan looked at Qumran's painful face and lost in thought. Is there any way that I can let this stupid dog obtain the heart of his dream lover? It can't be just a common yellow dog since Qumran, the prince of the black demon dog race, has taken a fancy to her by the first sight. He also knew the maid well. She wasn't easy to deal with. The Starwing Knights had become famous in the Sword Palace, and the black-haired maid indeed had an unfathomable power. She even killed a hero-ranked black demon dog with ease. If it wasn't because my master, the evil god Tlahui's Kalpantikutli, this stupid dog would have turned into ashes. It took my master a lot of efforts to revive it. I can't just see it looking for death again and do nothing. My master's power is still incomplete. His god power can't be wasted on this stupid dog again. You are no match for that maid. Child San Quan said calmly, at least, it's impossible before you enter the 4th stage. Raw. Qumran said angrily, then let me evolve into the 4th stage. I think I can meet the requirement of evolution after eating 100 hero-ranked humans. Impossible. Even in the entire Sword Palace, there are not 100 hero-ranked humans. Moreover, Child San Quan pointed to the sky. Cassina the battle god is right in the White Lotus sword domain. If you dare make any trouble, even my master, the great evil god Tlahui's Kalpantikutli, can't save your life again. Gah! Qumran's burning anger faded away as if Child San Quan's words were a basin of cold water. Even though it was the prince of black demon dogs, its combat power was far stronger than common hero-ranked beings. However, Cassina the battle god was at the same level with its ancestor, Cerberus. She was the monster sky sword of the sky sword god's domain. What can I do? Qumran lay on the ground, its tail wagged weakly. Don't worry, violence is always the final method to solve the problem. Child San Quan looked at Qumran with satisfaction. Fortunately, it is stupid and impulsive. At least, it knows that it should hold a heart of reverence to the beings at a higher rank. It still has the value of being used. How to feed stud dog, the main points of training dogs, the experience to train bulldog, the birth of a god dog. A lot of books flashed through Child San Quan's mind. Although none of them was about how to train a black demon dog, there was something in common. In order to help Qumran develop its talents and obtain an army of black demon dogs, it was a must to meet Qumran's ridiculous wishes first. Let me think. Child San Quan rubbed his temples with his 2 fingers. He tried to combine all the information together. This was a special, great ability he just obtained from the great evil god, Tlahui's Kalpantikutli, logical inference. Theoretically, the more information he had obtained, the more perfect conclusion he would draw. Of course, absolutely right was just an unattainable goal, just like the truth of everything. He didn't need to have a 100% accurate conclusion, but a solution that could help him solve the problem. He couldn't find an optimal solution, but this ability could offer him a near-optimal solution. As long as his moves were close to perfect, he would obtain a greater advantage as time went by. Of course, this ability would also draw a wrong conclusion sometimes. However, it was mostly because the initial information was wrong. It wasn't his problem. Now, input all information. Party A, Qumran, the prince of black demon dogs, the descendant of Cerberus. Party B, an unknown golden dog, the pet of the mysterious maid, Mai. Party A is willing to do anything to obtain Party B. He even had sacrificed his life once. Party B's master hates it and will never allow it to get close to her, and has the record of killing Party A. Judgment. The discrepancy between Party A and Party B is irreconcilable, and it's impossible to kidnap Party B by force. Conclusion. Find a solution that doesn't need any violent means. Got it. Child San Quan snapped with a confident smile on his face. Master Tlahui's Kalpantikutli, please use your power to change our black demon dog prince's appearance. I have a good plan, and I need the help of your god power. Baa. The white alpaca knocked on its hoof. A circle of black light appeared and covered the black demon dog. Yes, this is it. If you want to go to the human world, you must look like a human first. Almost exactly like that. Child San Quan looked at Qumran's body shrink from 3 meters tall to 1.8 meters tall, and specially paid attention to an indescribable part of Qumran's body with a satisfied look. What's wrong with this weak body? Looking at his new body, Qumran shouted with discontent. It was the prince of the black demon dog race. It was a horrible hunter, a fierce dark beast. Why did it become a weak human now? Where are my paws? Where are my sharp teeth? Where is my strong, beautiful, sexy tail? Where are my bone shells? Without these, am I still the prince of the black demon dog race? Be patient, for your own sake. Child San Quan remembered the books in his mind and thought what plot in the books could be used in reality. You are my past life prince, handsome CEO and his cute maid, having a love affair stealthily. Even the prince has married the princess. I will take away him unscrupulously. Mai's nose sniffed, staring at Huayu with a sad look. No, you have eaten too much. It's not a thing that a lady should do, Mai. Huayu looked at Mai's ingratiating eyes, feeling both funny and annoyed. It's not like a date at all, but like walking with a gluttonous puppy. Just now, she had bought over 30 kinds of snacks for Mai. Croquette, a string of candied haws, stone sugar, cream puff, roast chicken wings, beef skewer, as the most prosperous sword tip area in the White Lotus sword domain, which was connected with the outside worlds directly through the Star Bridge, people could find all kinds of foods from different gods' domains. Among all lower-level sword domains, only the White Lotus sword domain had this advantage, which should give the credit to the Sky Tower. Although it was just a projection of the real Sky Tower, however, even many middle-level sword domains didn't have one, which made a lot of sword domains feel jealous. The reason why the White Lotus sword domain had this privilege was because of Yunhai. The Sky Sword came from this sword domain. Mai, Starfire, still said nothing. She just moved closer to Huayu and held her arms. Huayu surrendered. Just like what had happened 30 times before, once Mai used this trump card, Huayu would immediately concede. Well, it's really the last time. If you eat more, you will become fat. Huayu paid for a bag of cotton candy and persuaded Mai. Mai, Starfire, cocked her head. Her body was growing up. Isn't it natural to eat more now? Become fat? Impossible. Oh. Looking at Mai's innocent eyes, Huayu sighed. Only the temperature that was still remaining on her arms could comfort her heart. Mai was a bit strange today. She was gluttonous, and kept silent because of the closed-mouth zen. However, Mai is still very cute today, isn't she? Now, Huayu understood that why some people would feed their pets too many foods until their pets became as round as a ball. Because it was too difficult to refuse that pair of eyes. Pets didn't know when was the time to refuse, just like Mai at this moment. When Mai looked at Huayu with the eye contact of I want this, and this, Huayu would forget all the words to refuse her. Maybe she could describe it as my poisoning. The entire Starwing Knights was in this state of being, poisoned by Mai. As the leader of the Starwing Knights, she had the sickness beyond cure. Mai, Starfire, ate the snow-white cotton candy happily. Because she ate so fast, there was a lot of white flour still left on her mouth. Don't rush, I can buy more for you. Well, it's better to stop. You should know when to stop. Huayu stretched out her fingers and wiped off the white cotton candy on the corners of Mai's lips, then looked at the white flour on her fingertips in a daze. Mai mischievously stretched out her hand, then put a piece of cotton candy and her fingers into Huayu's mouth. This was Starfire, she wouldn't hesitate to do anything that came to her mind. Oh! Huayu was surprised. She couldn't help but lightly bite on Mai's finger. Sweet. It's sweet. Compared to the cotton candy, Mai's finger tasted more delicious. Hua Yu could barely restrain her desire of licking Mai's finger. It makes it all worth it. First time cutting class, first skin to skin with someone, first date. As an aristocratic miss of the Hua family, she never made so many mistakes at the same time. But it's all worthwhile. The bloodline of the White Golden Rose was a holy bloodline of guarding order, the natural bloodline for leaders. As a leader, she shouldn't make any mistakes and always strive to be a perfect knight. However, Hua Yu felt a strong impulse to overthrow everything in her heart. Knight was a career for protection. If it was for Mai, even if she couldn't be a perfect knight, she didn't mind. Because she only wanted to be Mai's knight, she only wanted to protect Mai, one person. This kind of knight was imperfect, and must have betrayed the road of the knight in the eyes of fastidious people. Has she degenerated? Has she forgotten her dream of being a perfect knight? No, it was just a choice. She just went and followed a different road. No one should be forced to be perfect. People should choose their own roads, they should choose their own futures. It was a right that no one could be deprived of. According to the plan of her family, after she obtained the blessing of the White Lotus secret treasure, she should leave the Starwing Knights and return to the Western God's domain, inheriting the knights of her family. This was her inescapable duty as the successor of the White Golden Rose bloodline. She could only be the leader of the Starwing Knights before she graduated. In the eyes of the elders of her family, the Starwing Knights was just a game that some little girls played. They were just playing the game of Playhouse. Even if they didn't want to leave, after most girls of the Starwing Knights got married, how could the Starwing Knights still exist? They gave their support to the Starwing Knights, because they thought that it was a good warm-up exercise before Hua Yu inherited the Shinra Knights. Hua Yu's future wasn't in the White Lotus Sword domain, not even in the Sky Sword God's domains, but in the far-distant Western God's domains. Hua Yu gently held Mai's hand and kissed on it. I'm willing to be your knight. You are my king. Mai looked at Hua Yu with curiosity. She thought for a while, then gave her half the cotton candy that had already been eaten by herself. Hua Yu's heart was captured. Mai captured Hua Yu. Chapter 483. The Hero Saves a Beauty. 1. The sky was clear. The sun was shining brightly. Mai was the cutest one in the world. Hua Yu looked at Mai, who was eating a roast pig trotter, with a smile. She never thought that the world could be so beautiful. After making the decision which was equal to betraying her family, conversely, her heart was peaceful, because she didn't need to hesitate between her family and the Starwing Knights again. She wasn't just a puppet of her family. She chose to follow the call from her heart, walking into a brand new world. According to her family's plan, she should leave the Sword Palace as soon as she had obtained the blessing of the White Lotus secret treasure. After leaving the Eastern God's domain, she would change her name back to the Western style name and become a deputy leader of the Shinra Knights. After several years of experience, she would be able to be the leader legitimately, becoming a genuine holy knight. The Hua family was actually a branch of a famous knight family. The family's name, Hua, was just to be in line with the custom of the Eastern God's domain. Freya Luna Solder was her real name in the genealogy. If she went back to the Night God's domain, she could inherit the well-known Shinra Knights. It was an old knights that only followed the orders of the White Golden Rose bloodline. Over 11 knights had achieved the peak of the 6th rank in the Shinra Knights. The alternate leader of the Shinra Knights now was a Sky Knight, a well-known legend-ranked knight. Her family had paved the way for her. Even in the tutors of the Sword Palace, there was a hero-ranked knight who came across countless star bridges, coming to this remote sword domain from the distant Night God's domain. Everything started from the moment when her White Golden Rose bloodline was activated. After confirming the power of her bloodline, she would be qualified to use her true name, Freya Luna Solder. This was the tradition of the Hua family. Only the descendants whose bloodline had been activated could call themselves Solder. In the endless God's domains, the bloodline of Solder was all over the universe. However, only the people who had the original White Golden Rose bloodline had the right to use this name. Now, Hua Yu decided to give up this holy and glorious name, giving up her right of succession to the legendary Shinra Knights. Freya Luna Solder's fate had been determined from the beginning. She could only inherit the Shinra Knights, following the orders of the family. However, Hua Yu's fate only belonged to herself. She wanted to control her own destiny. Compared to the invincible Shinra Knights, Hua Yu preferred to choose the current Starwing Knights. Compared to the Shinra Knights, undoubtedly, the Starwing Knights was just a flower bud, growing up quietly surrounding the core named Mai. However, Hua Yu believed that the flower buds would grow up happily beside Mai, and finally become a beautiful flower garden. Mai poisoning was a toxicity symptom, but also a blessing too. In a gloomy basement, not far away, several stray dogs lay on the ground, shivering with cold. These ill-nourished dogs could do nothing but look at the black demon dog prince in fear. Is it really workable? I think it's a better idea to eat 100 hero-ranked humans. Qumran gazed at child San Quan in disbelief. Although it had wisdom, it couldn't be called smart. Even wisdom black demon dogs only knew how to eat humans in the most efficient method. The black demon dog race naturally couldn't understand schemes and intrigues. Even Cerberus didn't have this talent. I have told you, since we can't solve the problem, we can only find a method to solve the person who caused the problem. Your biggest problem is that once you appear in front of that maid, Mai, you will be killed even before you see your dream lover. Now, give it a reverse thinking. We should create a condition that can let you get closer to your dream lover. This is Capture Mai's heart plan. Child San Quan knocked the blackboard in front of him and pointed out the main point. Since you can't beat down Mai, your solution is to capture her heart. Once you succeed, you would also obtain your dream lover at the same time. Ha! Qumran was flabbergasted. Capture the heart of that monster maid. Isn't that suicidal behavior? Sure enough, it's a better plan to eat 100 hero-ranked humans. Humph. She is just a maid, I have 100 methods to solve her. Child San Quan said confidently and knocked the blackboard with a calm look. Plan 1, the hero saves the beauty. As far as I know, it's tacky, but from the frequency it appeared in love stories, it must be useful. Therefore, this is why you will need these stray dogs. Use your black demon dog bloodline to control them, share a few drops of your blood with them. I know. Qumran looked at these stray dogs. Even when he was still a stray dog, he was an overlord of stray dogs. These stray dogs looked undernourished, they must often be hungry. As the war machine of the demons, Black Demon Dog had the bloodline of the demon wolf, which was also the origin of common dogs. Therefore, Qumran naturally could control almost all common dogs. Of course, Truebred Golden Princess was an exception. Actually, the origin of this kind of dogs had no relationship with any wolf, they were blessed by the power of stars. Chapter 484, The Hero Saves a Beauty, 2. After obtaining Qumran's blood, although just about 10 drops of blood for each dog, it was their great luck that could totally change their life forms. Compared to the blessing of the White Lotus secret treasure, Qumran's blood was more effective to these stray dogs. Moreover, they were also in the sacrificial altar of the evil god. Quickly, several stray dogs' bodies expanded like balloons and were forced to change their forms bit by bit. No, not dog-headed men, Child San Quan said and stopped this trend of evolution. Black demon dogs were the main force of the demons, but dog-head men were just pure cannon fodders in the war. To any black demon dogs, it was as easy as breathing to transform a common dog into a dog-headed man. However, that wasn't what Child San Quan wanted. If I don't transform them into dog-head men, what can they be used for? Qumran frowned. They were just common stray dogs, how could they be transformed into true black demon dogs? I have a plan. Child San Quan smiled confidently. Mai, don't eat too much pig trotters. Hua Yu took out her handkerchief and wiped Mai's mouth. Just now, Mai had eaten 10 pig trotters, and it seemed that she could still eat 10 more pig trotters. It's not ladylike. However, having a robust appetite wasn't a bad thing for swordsmen. It was a sign that the swordsman's power was growing rapidly. The performance of reaching the peak of the mortal rank was the robust appetite. The capacity for eating of many third-ranked martial artists was 10 times more than common people. Hua Yu thought that Mai had approached the limit of the mortal rank and started to build up energy for challenging the hero rank now. In fact, Hua Yu was also at this stage, but her family had rich experience to help her solve this problem. High-level herbs and pills and valuable medicine were all good kinds of stuff to solve the hungry feeling at this stage. As an absolute minimum, she could go to the logistical section of the Sword Palace to receive military compressed biscuit. It was a kind of general army provisions. The taste was bad but was free to any disciples of the Sword Palace. Only at this stage, they would have the worry of having little food to eat. After entering the hero rank, the body would naturally understand how to absorb the free energy in the world. In the Western gods' domain, people called it mana, and it was called ether or the power of elements in some gods' domains. Hero-ranked beings could survive in the desert, the polar, or the underground world. The hero-ranked beings of some races could even survive in the void. Thinking so, perhaps she could only enjoy Mai's cute look of eating pig trotters at this time. After Mai entered the hero rank, she would never be so gluttonous. Well, eat more, Mai. After thinking it through, Hua Yu's eyes became more gentle. The date today is worthwhile. Unfortunately, happy times are always too short. While Hua Yu was immersed in her happy time with Mai, several fierce men rushed them from an alley. They were all wearing black leather clothing on their bodies, steel wristers on their arms, steel spike knee pads on their knees, and black iron belts on their waists. They were all about 2 meters tall with a ferocious look. Both sides of their heads were shaven, leaving a strip of noticeably longer golden hair in the center of their heads. Ha 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 ha. Heh heh heh. Food. Water. And woman. Food. Give me your food. Don't resist, or I will break your neck. They licked their rough axes or sharp knives in their hands, looking perfectly the definition of villains. In public on the street, they surrounded Hua Yu and Mai. Hua Yu looked at them in surprise. Their appearances were so weird as if they were coming from some borderland. Where did these strange men come from? Food. Food. Give me your food. Or we will do something to you. These third-ranked big fellows gazed at the pig trotter in Mai's hands with a greedy look, as if they would immediately start a fight if Mai refused them. Are you really so hungry? Hua Yu couldn't understand it. She could see that they were at the third rank. How could they live in misery in the sword tip area of the White Lotus sword domain? The third rank was the limit of mortals. If they came to other places, they could be a master of a city or a general of an army. In the valley, Qumran touched his head. It seems that something is wrong. Don't worry, it's just hard to change their nature. They have done everything we told them to do. Child San Quan said and frowned, looking at the several big fellows who were drooling at Mai's pig trotter. In his plan, he wanted to make the whole thing more dramatic, so he let the stray dogs transform into the big fellows now. However, they were outwardly strong but inwardly brittle. They had the life vitalities of the third rank, but their wisdom was so low that they could only remember several spoken lines. Now, they had said the words Child San Quan taught them. It was the showtime of the hero. Go ahead, Qumran. They have accomplished their mission. Child San Quan lightly waved the fan in his hand with a smile. They have accomplished their mission, therefore, they are useless now. It's time to abandon them. This was the fate of these stray dogs. Okay. Qumran threw his black cape into the air and leaped up. Then, he landed in front of the drooling big fellows with a tiger's smile. His appearance, clothes, and expressions were all tailor-made by Child San Quan. The only purpose was to make Qumran be the coolest at this moment. You are dead now. Qumran slowly raised his head with an icy stare. The strong, powerful body contained amazing explosive force in every muscle. Looking at his ornate obsidian armor, the old, mysterious runes on it showed that it wasn't a common armor that could be obtained by mortals. Plus his deep, black pupils and handsome face, he looked like the instantiation of cool. Yes, this was the appearance Child San Quan made for the prince. There was a world of difference between his appearance and the appearances of the human forms of the several stray dogs. At first glance, he looked like a protagonist coming out of a hero novel. Qumran perfectly landed on the ground, then drawing out a black lancer from his back using the coolest posture taught by Child San Quan. The black lancer was made up of 3 components of top-level spirit weapons. A pattern of a black dragon could be vaguely seen from the body of the lancer, which looked pretty powerful. At the same time, Child San Quan's plan flashed through his mind. Qumran, remember, the world of love is more competitive than the battlefield. If you want to obtain your golden princess, you must obtain my first by all means. Before you start, you need to know what role you will play in this plan. Play a role? Don't I only need to rush to her, push her down and get laid? Qumran said disapprovingly. In his mind, this was all the method to pursuing a female. No. Totally wrong. You read too few novels. Child San Quan shook his head and looked at Qumran's confused face with pity in his eyes. You have read a few novels, but novels can only be a reference. Your range of reading is too narrow. Yes, fall in love at first sight only happened in novels. They could be used for reference, but one could never simply copy the content in the novels. There were more professional books for this. The methods that can even let a monkey fall in love, the secret that can even let an otaku find a girlfriend, surprise. The ideal men in the eyes of women are actually, these books were the holy bibles of love, common love novels were just some introduction to love. According to the analysis of my logical inference, we can use one word to describe the perfect dream lover of females, said Child San Quan confidently. Prince. Prince. Qumran pointed at himself. Am I not a prince? I have the bloodline of Cerberus. No, I don't mean the prince of bloodline, but the prince of the collection of ideals. The more characteristics of you meet the collection, the more women would be attracted by you. The first, you must be tall. Child San Quan looked at Qumran's 3 meters tall body and shook his head. What? Ain't I tall? Qumran protested. No, not 3 meters. The ideal height in women's minds should be when she hugs you from the front, you can kiss on her forehead after slightly lowering your head, and when she hugs you from your back, her face can be supported on your shoulder. Based on Mai's height, the height between 180 centimeters to 190 centimeters is perfect. 3 meters tall, are you going to scare others to death? Ha! Qumran was speechless. He was the prince of the black demon dog race. How would he think a bit about the ideal height in human women's minds? So, you need to transform into a human first, and your height should be 185 centimeters. Child San Quan sketched the outline on the paper. The second, you must be rich. Women have a high requirement to their lover. Only the person who meets women's dream for their future can easily go into their hearts. Therefore, it's a must-be option to be rich. Qumran looked at himself in embarrassment. He was so poor that he didn't even have pants. Don't worry, I can help you solve this problem. Just don't forget that you owe me. Child San Quan said and ground his teeth for the money he had spent. He had bought a set of obsidian armor and a standard god weapon Black Dragon Lancer for Qumran, which were 10 times more expensive than their weight in gold. Fortunately, there was a trading center of the Sky Tower here, otherwise, he couldn't even buy these using money. The third, you must be handsome. Women like handsome guys, from the mortal rank to the legend rank, no woman doesn't pursue high-quality genes from men. Therefore, you must be handsome if you want to pursue her. Tall, rich, and handsome are the 3 basic elements to be a prince. Under Child San Quan's pen, the picture of a tall, handsome prince who was wearing a set of black armor and holding a black lancer appeared on the paper. Is that all? Qumran looked at the unfamiliar appearance on the paper and asked in an indecisive tone. Of course, they are not enough. Tall, rich, and handsome are just the 3 basic elements. Remember, women are emotional creatures. They hope that their prince is extremely wealthy and has friends all over the world, but will also stay with them all day and have a high degree of enthusiasm toward their family. No matter what happens, the prince can always go home on time. They hope that the prince is drop-dead gorgeous, and is also unswervingly loyal. No matter what happens, the prince will never take a glance at other women. They hope that the prince is the greatest hero in the world, and can give them the most gorgeous wedding. But after that, the prince will be willing to give up everything and live peacefully, unobtrusively with them. They hope that they don't need to do anything, and the prince will find them by accident, then pursue them with the most fierce enthusiasm, marrying them after defeating all the opponents who also want to marry them. In short, they want a man who has all advantages a human can have in the world and doesn't have any flaws. They want a man who is rich and gentle, loves everything about them and can forgive all their shortcomings. This is the so-called prince. No. I can't do it. I surrender. Qumran raised both his hands. How could such a prince really exist anywhere? Of course, this kind of prince doesn't exist anywhere. The ideal prince only exists in their minds, it's just a fantasy. Therefore, if you can make yourself look like such a prince, you can pursue any girl easily. Trust me on this, it can't be wrong. After using his ability logical inference, Child San Quan immediately started to change Qumran's body. The first is your dog head. It must be changed. Howl. Qumran protested. It was the most charming part of his body. Without the dog head, how could he be called bloodthirsty hunter and darkness beast? Ignore him. Ignore him. Next is your claws. They must be changed. No. At least, don't change my steel claws. Qumran protested again. Without his claws that were as hard as diamond, how could he fight against his enemies? No. Remember, you are a prince. How will any prince in the world fight using claws? Child San Quan ignored Qumran's sad cry and cut off his proud claws. The final step is to tidy up your appearance. This was the main point. Child San Quan held a boning knife and cut off all the unnecessary flesh and blood of Qumran's body, then used the god power of the evil god Tlahui's Kalpantikutli, transforming Qumran into a human, whose height was just 185 centimeters but not 3 meters tall. Not only that. The appearance of this body was perfect. His eyebrows were like a pair of sharp swords, and his eyes were as bright as stars. His nose was up and his hair was straight, plus his strong muscles, he was like coming out of the dream of countless girls. The height is 185 centimeters, the wingspan is 2 meters, and the body weight is 85 kilogram. Well, not bad. Everything is perfect. After checking Qumran's naked body again, Child San Quan nodded with satisfaction, then knocked on Qumran's indescribable body part. 28 centimeters. Are you satisfied? No. I'm the real prince of the black demon dog race. Why do I have to pretend to be a fake human prince? Now, Qumran looked totally like a human. He roared and clenched his fists, spreading a strong temperament in the air. I just changed your appearance. Your power isn't reduced. Don't worry. The organization will arrange an identity of a real prince for you. From now on, you are Prince Qumran. Let the plan start. You are bringing about your own destruction. Qumran held the black dragon lancer in his hand and dashed to his subordinates, who were still drooling. Gu. The smell of the pig trotter was really tempting. Heh heh heh. Ha ha ha. We will kill you. Although they were stupid, they still shouted out the lines aloud. Of course, it was because of Child San Quan. Their simple brains couldn't remember but so many words, so Child San Quan imprinted these words into their minds. Oh, beautiful ladies, don't worry, I'm here. Of course, this was also designed by Child San Quan. Qumran perfectly did what Child San Quan told him, including the time and the posture of his appearing, none of them were wrong. You, who are you? Who are you? Gazed this black-armored man vigilantly, because she naturally felt that something wasn't right. This was the sword tip area, not everyone was allowed to come here. Moreover, the 3 villains were all at the 3rd rank, it was hard to believe that 3 third-ranked people would rob food and water on the street. Isn't there a shop beside them? Even if their minds had problems, it wasn't likely that they would be reduced to poverty. The 3rd rank wasn't common, Hua Yu herself had just reached this rank not long ago. A lot of forces would be willing to recruit them, even if there was really a problem with their brains. Roa, don't resist. Give me your food and water, or I will kill you. The 3 big fellows rushed to Hua Yu and Mai together. Total annihilation. Used the unfamiliar weapon and made the strange pose, Qumran brandished his lancer, sweeping the 3 robbers into the garbage of history. After drawing back his lancer, Qumran looked at the 2 people behind him with a proud look. How was it? Wasn't I cool? He had the confidence to be a perfect prince, no matter whether he was the black demon dog prince or the human prince. Thank you. Hua Yu said politely, showing her demeanor as the leader of the Starwing Knights. Although she felt strange, Qumran indeed helped them. Oh! Mai was still biting the pig trotter and looking at this tall man with curiosity. It was the right time. Launch your attack. Staring at the maid with your deep, affectionate eyes. Qumran instinctively started to use Soulful Stare after hearing Child San Quan's order. Is it really useful? Although Qumran did everything Child San Quan told him to do, however, he didn't think that he would like a human. He was the prince of the black demon dog race. How would he fall in love with a human, who only walked with 2 legs? Only the golden princess could make his heartbeat rock. Humans were just prey in his eyes. However, when he carefully looked at Mai, he suddenly felt a palpitation. Why does this human look so cute today? It was an impulse from the deep side of his bloodline. It was the boiling sound of the bloodline of Cerberus. So beautiful. A special feeling suddenly started to germinate in Qumran's heart. Mai, Starfire, looked at the man in front of her. She was confused for a moment, then smiled. Tigar. Looking at Mai's smile, Starfire actually, Qumran's hand shook so hard that he could barely hold the black dragon lance. He felt as if he just saw the sun of the summer. What is this feeling? She was just a human, moreover, she killed him not long ago. She was his natural enemy, but why was her smile so sweet? No, not only her smile, but also her smell had also become different. Next is to show your wealth, power, and demeanor, said Child San Quan. He hadn't noticed the great change in Qumran's heart. The most important thing is to be passionate. Trust me, most women have zero resistance to an excellent man who is passionately pursuing them. Therefore, you must be a prince. Prince Qumran. Qumran brandished his lance. He didn't need Child San Quan to tell him anything and directly burst with enthusiasm. I'm Qumran, the Prince of Goodland Kingdom. All right, Qumran also didn't know where the Goodland Kingdom was, since Child San Quan gave him this identity and promised that it would be flawless. From now on, he was the real prince of the Goodland Kingdom. For this, Child San Quan even made a special card for him to show his identity and combat ability data. Name, Qumran, the Prince of the Goodland Kingdom. True name, Qumran, the Prince of the Black Demon Dog Race. Gender, male. Height, 185 centimeters. Weight, 80 kilograms. Career, hero ranked Lancer. Property, Chaos, Evil. Strength, A. As the Black Demon Dog Prince, your strength is far stronger than other hero-ranked beings. Mana, D. You don't have any magic talent. Endurance, A+. You can fight for 3 days and 3 nights before you feel tired. Luck, E. Very bad in every sense. Agility, B. You are as fast as wind. God Weapon, Standard God Weapon. Black Dragon Lance, Black Obsidian Armor. Class Skills, Magic Resistance, B. Your strong body can let you resist most magic, not including high-level and forbidden magic. Divinity, C. You have a part of the bloodline of Cerberus. When it's necessary, you can transform into a black demon dog again. It's not recommended to expose your true body in the human world. Evil God's Shelter. You are watched by the evil god Tlahui's Kalpantakutli. If you die, your core will be recycled by the power of the evil god. Personal Skills, Dark Skyfall, B. You can create a dark area that can swallow all lights. The life force of the living beings in the dark skyfall will be absorbed by you and transform into your power. Shape-shifting, A. You can active your bloodline of Cerberus and transform into a strong bloodthirsty hunter, swallowing all lives without mercy. Naturally, obtain all abilities of all third-ranked black demon dogs. Berserk, B. You have the potential to be a berserker. At the price of losing your mind, your strength will be greatly improved. Standard God Weapon, Black Dragon Lance, a heavy lance that was made of fine gold and fine silver. It is 2 meters long with black obsidian gems engraved on it, and is able to tear open most magic shields. Because it's too heavy, most hero-ranked beings can't use it. Black Obsidian Armor, a valuable armor that was made of the black obsidian which can block magic. It can be used by a strong knight or warrior. Because it's made of black obsidian, the wearer can't use any magic. Apart from luck, Qumran's data is absolutely excellent. His power is far stronger than most hero-ranked beings. After recording Qumran's data, Child San Quan had a completely new appraisal of Qumran. No wonder that the great evil god, Tlahui's Kalpantikutli, was willing to save him. The bloodline of Cerberus is indeed powerful. Even if he didn't hold a weapon, the power of his body was far stronger than most hero-ranked humans. This was the reason why the black demon dog race could be the principal force of the demons. Even the elf race suffered a great loss when facing them in the war. If it wasn't because most black demon dogs' minds weren't clear, including their king, Cerberus also did a stupid thing that ate an evil god in the same camp. Originally, the black demon dog race was entitled to obtain a higher position in the demon army. After being tidied up by Child San Quan, Qumran's appearance could undoubtedly win a full score in front of Hua Yu and my prince. Hua Yu looked up and down at Qumran. Indeed, his black obsidian armor and black dragon lance were priceless treasures. Not all hero-ranked beings could obtain a god weapon. In the endless gods' domains, god weapon was born from a coagulum of the power of fantasy or from the bloodline that contained the power of god. When a god weapon's master died, not all people could inherit the god weapon. Its new master must obtain its recognition first. If a person couldn't obtain the recognition of the god weapon, even if the person holding the god weapon in his hand, the god weapon wouldn't be better than a common weapon. Apart from a few successors who had been recognized by the god weapon's previous master, or the children of the god weapon's previous master, it was difficult to obtain the recognition of a real god weapon. According to the statistics of the Endless Gods domain, over 99% hero-ranked beings didn't have a suitable god weapon. 70% of them could only use a standard god weapon, and have to try their best to make their standard god weapon become a real god weapon. Most people started preparing for this even when they were still at the mortal rank. 15% of them luckily obtained the heritage of god weapon. They could use a part of the power of the god weapons, but they still needed to build the relationship with their god weapon, hoping that they could be recognized by their god weapons someday. The remaining few were really the hero-ranked people who had their own god weapons. There was always discrimination amongst different people, including hero-ranked people. A god weapon won't choose a weakling to be its master. To be the master of a god weapon, there were a lot of preconditions. The first, the people who could be a god weapon's master must be a super genius even amongst all hero-ranked people. Some of them had great bloodlines, inheriting the god weapons of their ancestors. Most of the time, only one person in a big family was entitled to inherit the god weapon of the family. For example, the strongest sword of the Great Sheer Sword domain, Great Sheer Dragonfinch, was the god weapon that stood for the fate of the entire Great Sheer Sword domain. Only the strongest swordsman could pick it up. Some people carried the hope of countless people and even became the incarnation of God on earth, so that they could lift the source of the holy light, Holy Grail. Some of them were the master of a god's domain or a saint dervish. The stronger the god weapon was, the stronger the mind of its master should be. There was a worldwide gap between a hero-ranked person who had a god weapon and another hero-ranked person who didn't have a god weapon. For example, if a fourth-ranked person obtained the recognition of a god weapon, he could even challenge a sixth-ranked person who didn't have a god weapon. Moreover, only the hero-ranked people who had a god weapon had the potential to enter a higher realm. It was also a necessary step to let a god weapon become a legend-ranked weapon. Just like the Sands of Time, the sword of the sixth sky sword Cassina, before Cassina was known as the sixth sky sword, very few people knew of its existence. Until Cassina became a famous legend-ranked being, then it also became a legend-ranked weapon and its power was incredibly strengthened. A god weapon was the key to reaching the legend rank. Unless it was a legendary fantastic creature, none of the hero-ranked people could reach the legend rank without a god weapon. Each legendary god weapon corresponded to a legend-ranked being. Behind every legend-ranked weapon, there was a long story or myth. Hua Yu had only seen one god weapon, Cassina's Sands of Time. Cassina and the Sands of Time were like the two sides of the same coin called legend. Qumran's black dragon lance gave Hua Yu a feeling of unstoppableness, just like Qumran himself. It meant that Qumran's talent was incredibly strong, otherwise, he and his standard god weapon couldn't show this sharp temperament. Humph, they are just several hooligans. Don't mind them. Qumran thought that his gallant performance was effective, he laughed. Although this was the first time he used a lance, however, he thought that the black dragon lance was pretty good. At least, it was far better than other weapons. Maybe he was born to be a lancer. He even wanted to howl to express his joy. At this moment, Qumran was in high and vigorous spirits. "Are you the disciples of the Sword Palace?" "I'm also a disciple of the Sword Palace. I just arrived at the Sword Palace today." It was a lie, but also the truth. In the endless gods' domains, there was indeed a small kingdom called Goodland, but there was never a prince called Qumran. However, from the moment Prince Qumran appeared in front of Hua Yu and Mai, it had become truth. From now on, this prince from a mysterious kingdom of the Western God's domain would become a real disciple of the Sword Palace. He even had the third heirship to the throne of the Goodland Kingdom. "Oh, you are our classmate." Hua Yu slightly relaxed her vigilance. Since he was also the disciple of the Sword Palace, this weird meeting had a believable explanation. Perhaps, this prince and his subordinates played this trick called the hero saves the beauty. As for his goal, Hua Yu looked at Mai, who was tightly holding her wrist in her hands. Tut, she found it. Not surprising, after all, she is from that family. Child San Quan looked at them in the dark and smiled. It doesn't matter, he didn't expect that Qumran would reveal himself. The most important thing was the first impression. Their first meeting couldn't be normal. The more striking it was, the deeper that maid would remember Qumran. Even by fair means or foul, he must make her remember him. At this point, Qumran did really good. It was all worth the black obsidian armor and the black dragon lance. Anyway, Qumran wasn't going to pursue Hua Yu but that maid beside her. After leaving the first impression, it was time to start the second stage. The core of the book, the methods that can even let a monkey fall in love, was to hit on what one likes. As your classmate, it's really a pity that I couldn't be present at the opening ceremony together with you. To make up for it, my treat. With a bright smile on his face, Qumran repeated the words Child San Quan taught him, and staring at Mai with his scorching eyes. Mai's eyes suddenly brightened up. Food. Delicious food. A lot of delicious foods. Well, thank you. Looking at Mai's impatient expression, Hua Yu couldn't help but emit a sigh. Mai, you will be kidnapped someday if you continue to be like this. One dish after another was piled up on the table, one dumpling after another was quickly eaten by Mai. Mai, Starfire's appetite was 10 times better than usual, her appearance looked as if she was going to eat all the foods of the restaurant. Looking at Mai's happy face, Qumran sweated profusely. He quietly calculated the money he had. They weren't sufficient. That idiot. He was deceived. Child San Quan waved and quickly closed his fan. Not surprisingly, that girl, the miss of the Hua family, the leader of the Starwing Knights, had found Qumran's purpose. This time, his wallet really would become empty. Looking at Mai's happy smile when she was eating, Hua Yu felt as if her heart had melted. Mai's spoiled look only belonged to her. It was a treasure that only she could see. Because she could see Mai's cute expression, she decided to forgive the prince's poor performance. How could there be any third-ranked hooligans in any corner of the world? Please, be more professional the next time. Only this kind of silly rural prince would think that his plan of the hero saves the beauty really worked. In Hua Yu's eyes, Mai paid more attention to the pig trotter in her hand than the prince. Oh, I can barely restrain myself. Why is Mai so cute today? In order to restrain her impulse of hugging Mai in her arms, Hua Yu did her best to rein in her desire. Oh, no. I don't have enough money. Looking at the dishes piled up on the table, Qumran felt a faint daze. Apart from the black dragon lance and the black obsidian armor, he was as poor as a church mouse. Does he need to sell them to pay for the food? Sigh, can't you do anything right? That's all for today, we have accomplished the first and the second goals. Qumran, perform the final plan. Looking at Qumran's impatient look, Child San Quan sighed in his heart. Even though it had transformed from a black demon dog to a human prince, essentially, he was still an idiot. He would expose himself if he stayed here any longer. Hit and run, this was also the secret of pursuing. As a man, he must be patient. The prince still needed to learn a lot of things. My, did you get enough? Who are you? Couldn't help but laugh when she saw Qumran running away embarrassedly. What an interesting entertainment. I didn't expect that Mai could be so charming. Look, this prince from a rural area was totally charmed by her. It seemed that my poisoning was spreading. Mai, Starfire, even licked the dish clean. She didn't even leave a drop of juice in it. She was very satisfied. In her eyes, it was all due to Who Are You. As for that prince just now, did he come to invite me to dinner? Okay, our next destination is the seashore. Who Are You carefully helped Mai wipe her mouth, then she held Mai's hand, walked along the street and arrived at the boundary of the sword tip area. A magic ward was protecting this place, separating the sword tip area and the sword body area. The ward was so powerful that it was visible to the naked eye. It was a partially transparent amber-colored wall, connecting with the ley lines of the entire White Lotus sword domain. It was literally the final bulwark of the White Lotus sword domain. The ward here was the same as the shield of the Sword Palace. It was a perfect compounded magic circle. If necessary, it could even be strengthened by the power of the Sky Tower. It was also one of the heritage Knigh the Sword Master left for the White Lotus sword domain. It could even block the attacks from legend-ranked enemies. Apart from the White Lotus secret treasure, it was also one of the reasons that attracted talented disciples for the Sword Palace. However, in front of Mai's authority, this final bulwark was meaningless. Mai just stood in front of the wall. It naturally opened a crack for her, straightly leading to the seashore. Mai, your authority. Looking at the final bulwark easily opened a crack, Who Are You was shocked. In fact, she only wanted to go to the embankment, watching the sea from a distance. She didn't expect that Mai could actually walk into the ward without any difficulty. In her memory, only one person, or rather to say, one floating ship had this authority. The Sixth Sky Sword, Cassina the Battle God's floating ship, the Sands of Time. Lost in thought, Who Are You vaguely understood something. Walking along the seashore, they could smell the fresh sea air, looking at seagulls flying freely in the sky. Compared to the 50 meters tall walls in the sword handle area, the seashore beside the boundary of the sword tip area was peaceful and delightful. Mai, let's run. Who Are You smiled. She took off her socks and stepped on the white sands, leaving a line of footprints behind her. Mai, Starfire, also took off her socks and stepped onto Who Are You's footprints playfully. Blue sea, green waves, and white sand beach. Who Are You and Mai held each other's hands, walking together under the sunset. Without warning, Mai ran to the sea and kicked the water with her feet. Ah! Who Are You's body got wet and she felt both funny and annoyed. Mai is too wayward today, as if she just became a naughty little devil. Hey! Who Are You couldn't stand it. Her feet also kicked the sea water and wet Mai's body. Unlike Who Are You's white dress, Mai was wearing the black maid uniform. Even if she got wet, Who Are You couldn't see anything. Who Are You was still the one who suffered losses. Through the wet white dress, the outline of her underwear was exposed. Mai, Starfire, and Who Are You played. They almost forgot the passage of time until the sun almost dipped below the horizon. Mai, am I very cunning? The golden sunlight reflected on Who Are You's golden hair. Because her hair was wet, the originally golden curled hair had become smooth now, like golden tassels. She carefully held Mai's body in her arms, their figures overlapped under the sunset. I did this to you before others also noticed this. Sure enough, I can't be a perfect knight. I'm sorry, my ancestor of the white golden rose. Who Are You lightly kissed Mai's soft lips. This time, it wasn't a sneak attack from Mai, but she willingly did it. Pleasant taste, the saline taste of the sea water. Mai, I love you, even if you are really. I love you forever. In the sky, Mai sat on the roof of the girls' dorm with her bare feet, looking up into the star-studded sky. There were several star roads amongst the endless stars, connecting together with the Sky Tower. They were the marks of the endless gods' domains, the star bridges that connected countless worlds. Because of the star bridges, the vast world of the stars could exist. People in different sword domains could interact with each other. Oh! Mai ate the last pig trotter, contentedly laying down on the roof. Unlike her sister, Star Thunder, who couldn't fall to sleep if she didn't sleep on the bed, Starfire could sleep anywhere, which was a habit that was inherited from her mother. The soft star lights shone on her body, looking warm and peaceful. After playing all day, Starfire was indeed tired. She quickly went off to dreamland. An amber beetle landed on the stone figure in the quartile of the girls' dorm, monitoring the girls' dorm, and saw Starfire's graceless sleeping posture. After a while, Who Are You in her white nightclothes appeared. Looking at Mai, who slept on the roof without vigilance, she couldn't help but rub her temples. Mai, don't sleep in this place. Mai, wake up, you will catch a cold. Unfortunately, no matter what Who Are You said, Mai still didn't wake up. She turned over and kept sleeping. Well, this Who Are You was groomed to be an aristocratic miss. She never faced such a tough person like Mai was now. She was completely indifferent to whatever Who Are You did. Finally, Who Are You had to pick her up and carry her to her room. Goo, it seemed that the smell of Who Are You activated the instinct memory of Yunxi's body. His body naturally stretched out 2 hands and grasped Who Are You's big, soft, full breasts. Who Are You's body shivered and she almost fell from the roof. Did you do that on purpose, Mai? Looking at Mai in her arms, whose eyes were still closed with an innocent look on her face, Who Are You angrily pinched her face. The smooth hand feel made Who Are You's face turn red. Suddenly, she felt an incredible joy from it. She couldn't help but pinch Mai's face over and over again. Woof, Starfire almost exposed her true identity in her sleep. Her hands grasped tightly on Who Are You's breasts as if they were having a competition. Undoubtedly, it was an unfair competition. Who Are You didn't have any advantage from the beginning. When she finally walked into Mai's room, even her feet became limp. Apparently, the damages from pinching face and rubbing breasts weren't at the same level. To make it worse, as time went by, Starfire was becoming more and more skillful. Undoubtedly, it was the godlike talent Yunxi's body had mastered after marrying over 1 million brides in the water god's world. Even though his body just did it instinctively, it wasn't something that Who Are You could resist. As a result, Who Are You suddenly found that her nightclothes disappeared. She didn't only become naked but also was laying on Mai's bed, being rubbed by Mai as if she was a naked white lamb. No, I'm a knight. I must follow the creed of the knight. Who Are You's voice became lower and lower as her face became redder and redder. Humility. Mai skillfully stretched out her tongue and licked the tops of the plump fruits. Integrity. Who Are You did her best to resist, however, her struggle was destined to be useless. This was Mai's room. No matter what she did here, no one would know about it. Compassion. Mai wasn't being moved. To be precise, the body was moving following its instincts. Starfire was still sleeping. Bravery. Who Are You gazed at Mai with an imploring look. She was following in the footsteps of Mai Lan, Ling Ling, and Lulu. People always repeated the same mistake. Nothing is new under the sun. Sacrifice. Who Are You didn't behave better than Mai Lan and Ling Ling in the face of Mai's attack. Honor. Who Are You bit her golden hair and endured. She only hoped that Mai would stop after a while. Soul. Will Mai let go of the lamb that has fallen into her hands? The truth was cruel, because Mai's body was moving following its instinct, and the body didn't have any intellect. Therefore, Who Are You suffered all the things Mai Lan and Ling Ling experienced last night, and because she was alone, she would face a double experience. Snow-white sheet, cluttered golden hair, empty pupils, sweat all over her body. From her toes to her ears, Who Are You's body was stained with Mai's body odor. After Lulu, Ling Ling, and Mai Lan, another member of the Starwing Knights, the leader of the Starwing Knights, had also fallen and fell into Mai's hands. Mai poisoning was still spreading. Chapter 491, The Witches Pray in the Morning. 1. Clear water came tumbling down from tens of meters above her, and the droplets splashed like pearls with a clear and pleasant sound. A large area of water mist covered the surrounding area in the range of 100 meters, making the pool under the waterfall like a dreamland, showing light and empty atmosphere. Red Lotus was sitting under the waterfall, on an ancient rock which stood out in the air. She silently felt the scouring of the water flowing over her skin, and prayed in the morning. Her red witch clothes had long been wet, vaguely revealing part of the snow-white outline of her skin. Boom! Boom! The water bombarded Red Lotus's body in waves at a high speed and splashed all over the sky. Everything is changeable, everything should return, only the sword will be forever, truth is true, flames of heavens, burns up the world. In front of Red Lotus, only the divine weapon, Red Lotus Holy Sword, which was inherited from generation to generation by the witches in White Lotus Sword domain, emitted bright red light. All the water flows disappeared when they approached this divine weapon, not even a trace of steam could spill out into the air. The high temperature was horrible enough to burn mountains and boil the sea, but the Red Lotus Holy Sword suspended in front of Red Lotus in silence didn't even transfer the slightest iota of heat. The huge waterfall was meeting an invisible hole. In front of the Red Lotus Holy Sword, all water disappeared completely without any traces. The history of the witches in White Lotus Sword domain could be traced back to the era of Knigh the Swordmaster. Normally, every generation of witches were the guardians of the White Lotus secret treasure. They were responsible for protecting and guarding the White Lotus secret treasure. Without exception, all witches were at the hero rank, and all of them were born in the White Lotus Sword domain. They would never leave this sword domain in their lifetime. The current master of the White Lotus Sword domain had studied in 3 sword domains when he was young, and he even once had the opportunity to enter a higher rank. Just because of his bad luck, he became frustrated and returned to his hometown, holding the position of the master of the White Lotus Sword domain. Relatively speaking, none of the witches ever left White Lotus Sword domain. They inherited the history of witches from generation to generation and guarded the White Lotus Sword domain. It could be said that the witches who guarded the White Lotus secret treasure were actually the real masters of White Lotus Sword domain. Only because the White Lotus Sword domain needed a channel to communicate with the outside world, so it must have a spokesman that stood for the White Lotus Sword domain. White Lotus Sword Master was such a spokesman. He was responsible for all kinds of foreign affairs of the White Lotus Sword domain, and when necessary, he would go to other sword domains on behalf of the White Lotus Sword domain. No matter what happened, witches could never leave the White Lotus Sword domain. Even if the sword domain was going to be destroyed, they would face the end of the sword domain without hesitation. In this sense, the inheritance of witches was the real highest power of the White Lotus Sword domain, but not the replacement of the master of the White Lotus Sword domain. Red Lotus and White Lotus were the next witches of the White Lotus Sword domain. Moreover, they were rare twin witches, even in the history of the White Lotus Sword domain. Whether it was Red Lotus or White Lotus, their talent was at the highest level in history. If it wasn't because that in order to complete the inheritance ceremony of the witches, they had to accomplish a special achievement, they would have been qualified to replace the old White Lotus Sword Master to be the supreme rulers of the White Lotus Sword domain. There was no need to doubt their strength. They were excellent hero-ranked twin witches that even Hua was profuse in praise about. Even the current White Lotus Sword Master, who had attained the 6th rank, hadn't seen the door of the legendary rank, while Red Lotus had long been recognized by her god weapon, Red Lotus Holy Sword, and her sword talent was strong enough to be able to be compared with Hua. Even amongst all beings of all races in the Endless Gods domains, Red Lotus and White Lotus were rare geniuses born with godlike talents. A god weapon wouldn't choose a weak person to be its master. Red Lotus was such a person who was qualified to be recognized directly by Red Lotus Holy Sword. She was born with the right to challenge the legend rank. If she was the only witch in this generation, the old White Lotus Sword Master could have already retired. And this was the problem, she was not alone. One of the rules of the inheritance ceremony of witches was irrevocable. To be the god witch, she must accomplish the inheritance ceremony of a god weapon. Red Lotus Holy Sword was Red Lotus god weapon. The problem was her sister, White Lotus. She should have inherited another god weapon, but an accident happened. She made a piece of equipment called Star and Moon Ring herself. The god weapon White Lotus gave up inheriting was called Green Lotus Throne, which wasn't inferior to Red Lotus Holy Sword at all. It wasn't difficult for White Lotus to obtain the recognition of that god weapon. Theoretically, as long as they were the god weapons of witches, White Lotus could inherit them with ease. However, White Lotus refused to inherit the Green Lotus Throne, nor any other god weapons of witches. As long as she nodded her head, any god weapon would be her possession. Over 99% of hero-ranked beings would do their best to obtain such an opportunity. However, White Lotus just turned a blind eye to it, which shocked the entire Sword Palace. Red Lotus also did not understand why White Lotus was so insistent that she did not inherit any of the god weapons of witches. Until she put on that thing, she finally realized what her sister wanted. No, absolutely not. The prince absolutely does not exist. He was just a person in your dream. White Lotus, you can't make mistakes. No man is good in this world. After being washed by the rushing water of the waterfall, Red Lotus sincerely prayed that her sister would sober up from the unrealistic dream of the prince. Chapter 492, The Witches Pray in the Morning, 2, compared to Red Lotus, whose heart was so annoyed that she had to calm herself down by washing her body under the waterfall, White Lotus was really into the state of meditation. On her forehead, the star and moon ring with the patterns of sun, moon, and stars radiated a soft, holy light, shining on her soft and white skin, making her look like an immortal, not merely a human being. No, sister, give it up, give it up, give it up. That prince doesn't exist. It was just a dream. Red Lotus repeated the words over and over again, trying to make her sister, White Lotus, change her mind. The weapon White Lotus chose for herself wasn't any of the god weapons of witches, but the star and moon ring she made for herself. When Red Lotus finally realized that White Lotus had no intention of inheriting any of the god weapons in the Sword Palace, she was really in a panic. She couldn't understand White Lotus' decision. Except for the hero-ranked people who had no way of obtaining a god weapon, then they would try to make a god weapon for themselves. If they had any chance of obtaining a god weapon, no one would spend hundreds of years making a god weapon from scratch. It wasn't simple to upgrade a standard god weapon to be a real god weapon. As the crystallization of the power of fantasy, all god weapons had their own unique attributes. There were no two identical god weapons within the endless gods' domains. From a standard god weapon to a real god weapon, it often took hundreds of years or even thousands of years. The earliest god weapons were granted by fantastic creatures. When human beings were still in the age of ignorance, fantastic creatures were undoubted gods in people's eyes. A god weapon was such a part of the god, which was the crystallization of gods that once only gods and fantastic creatures could use. Human beings had no qualifications to use any god weapons at all. It took millions of years for humans and other races to understand god weapons, the crystallizations of the rules of the universe. The original god weapons, without exception, were all related to gods. They were absolute artifacts. Only very few of these original god weapons still remained in the world. Most of them were destroyed or disappeared long ago into history. Most of today's god weapons were formed by human beings and other races through their own understanding of the weapons used by the original gods. They created their own god weapons step by step, relying on their own power of the rules. It was extremely difficult to make a god weapon, especially to make a god weapon from start to finish. Even the best hero-ranked genius would spend hundreds of years waiting for a standard god weapon to be recognized by the rules of the universe and become a real god weapon. Nowadays, most god weapons were inherited from generation to generation. Rarely would people be willing to make a god weapon for themselves from scratch. However, White Lotus chose this most difficult path. She completely gave up on inheriting any of the god weapons of witches and chose to make the star and moon ring for no reason, and devoted herself to cultivating it. Red Lotus was anxious in her heart. She did not oppose White Lotus's decision of making the star and moon ring. However, she could not accept the truth that White Lotus only used the star and moon ring, ignoring all the other god weapons she could inherit. As the twin witches, they could contract with multiple god weapons. This special ability of the twin witches should not be wasted like this. Even if she took 10,000 steps backward and admitted that White Lotus could use the star and moon ring as her main weapon, there were still many ancient god weapons waiting for White Lotus to inherit in the Sword Palace. Every time when Red Lotus saw the god weapons that had been sealed for thousands of years and couldn't have an appropriate master, there was an unspeakable pain in her heart. Every time when White Lotus approached those god weapons who had waited too long, these god weapons would actively emit lights and wait for her choice as if they were poor puppies waiting to be adopted. As long as she stretched out her little hand, there was no need for any inheritance ceremony. All god weapons would fly to her side. However, White Lotus still refused to choose any of them. She even refused to inherit the Green Lotus throne. Red Lotus had always wondered why her gentle sister, White Lotus, would so stubbornly refuse all the god weapons. Now she understood that her sister had already decided what she wanted. They are very, very good, but I don't like them. No matter how many god weapons I can choose, I just need one. I only want one god weapon, it's the only treasure that belongs to me. No one else could interfere with White Lotus's choices, including her sister, Red Lotus. This was the first time that Red Lotus had discovered that once her sister had decided what to do, no one could change her mind. No. No. White Lotus, you're wrong. You're wrong. That prince doesn't exist in this world. The kind of prince in the novel you read doesn't exist in the real world at all. It was just a dream after you read too many romantic novels. Why? You are so smart, why would you believe a dream? I beg you, White Lotus, give up on the Star and Moon ring. Even if all the god weapons in the Sword Palace can't satisfy you, I will find a better god weapon for you. Please, just put down the Star and Moon ring. Looking at her sister, who was obsessed with the Star and Moon ring, continuing to pour all her spiritual power into it, Red Lotus really regretted it. I shouldn't have gone to hold the entrance exam of the Sword Palace. If I knew that my innocent sister would fall into the delusion of love on the way, I would never have left the Sword Palace with her. Sister, do you believe in love? Even if she didn't open her eyes, White Lotus knew what look was on her sister's face. Red Lotus' compliant sister entered the period of rebellion, she must be worried about it. However, White Lotus didn't regret her choice. When she was small, White Lotus had known that she was different from her sister. From the day they were conceived in their mother's womb, they were destined never to be separated. Something twined around them, made them come into the world hand in hand from their mother's body at almost the same time. Even their mother didn't know who the big sister of the strange twins was. Finally, they regarded the baby on the left as the big sister and the baby on the right as the young sister. The Twins of Fate was not their original title. The Cursed Twins was the name they were called after their birth. Their bodies, including their hands and feet, were tightly connected by transparent threads when they were born, just like twin trees. Apparently, this situation was abnormal. When their mother saw this, she couldn't help but scream. And about the thing that happened after that, both of them didn't want to recall it anymore. By the time they appeared in front of the public again, they were already 7 years old and became the apprentices of witches. They had been given a new mission, a new life, and had completely been cut off from their past. People wouldn't ask about the past of the twin witches, doubting the sacredness of White Lotus Sword Palace. The witch who took them from the mortal world to the Sword Palace became their teacher and began to teach them the knowledge that witches should know. The Cursed Twins eventually became the respected twin witches, Red Lotus and White Lotus. People took it for granted that the respected twin witches were children raised by the witches. They had excellent talent, strong bloodline, and a fate that no one could match. After losing everything, Red Lotus and White Lotus got everything. However, White Lotus would never forget the scared expression on her mother's face when she saw them, and all the ugly things that happened after that. Yes, she remembered. She always remembered. As the yin side of the twin witches, she had a self-awareness and wisdom earlier than her sister. Her sister, Red Lotus, obtained her first talent when she was 3 years old, and White Lotus had naturally obtained hers, right after her birth. She knew all the things her sister did in order to protect her as if she was a flower in a greenhouse. She also knew why her sister hated men so much. However, is it really good to go on like this? Sister, can you really be happy with what you have done? Why are we so unfortunate and so special? As the twin witches of fate, can't we have our own destiny? Become a witch and guard the White Lotus secret treasures like all the previous witches, dedicating our lives to White Lotus sword domain. Is this our life? No, it shouldn't be. White Lotus wanted to destroy all of these, she wanted to get rid of such a fate. For this, she made a wish and made preparations. That day, when the glory of the stars fell, She finally found what she wanted and heard the voice that could help her fight against this so-called fate. Then she met the person she was supposed to meet. The prince who could let her get rid of the fate of the twin witches. My sister is wrong. My prince is not an illusion, neither a delusion, but right in front of me and close enough to touch. She took the gift from him and vowed to turn it into a weapon that could break all the shackles of fate. That day, she said to her prince, "Today, this Michelix is just a common stone in the eyes of other people. But from now on, it's the first gift my lover gave me. In the future, it will be the gift my husband first presented to me, and gradually will become a priceless and irreplaceable treasure in my life. I don't mind other people's opinions, but for me, it's the most beautiful and glamorous gem from my prince. I witness it here. Your present is the most valuable gift to me, to complete our eternal contract. Maybe I indeed don't know what true love is, but I swear to this gem. I will love you forever." She prayed to the stars in the sky, and then, the wish came true. The golden red of the sun. The silver of the moon. The bright starlights gathered in her palm, blessed her and guided her. "Sister, have you seen it? The miracle you and I expect is right here, in this star and moon ring. We are no longer the cursed twins, no longer shouldering that heavy fate." On that day, she made an invariable pledge to him and handed over her fate to him. Prince, the miracle she was waiting for, the glory of redemption. Her prince didn't need to be rich. She just needed a gift from him. As long as the gift could represent his sincerity, even a piece of Michelix was sufficient. Her prince didn't need to be handsome and have friends all over the world. Although her prince was now so cute and had a whole group of girls to be his knights. For her, the prince was the light, the lighthouse in the darkness, the key to a new destiny. "Sister, do you like the sun?" At the end of the morning prayer ceremony, White Lotus reached out her little hand and pointed to the golden light above the waterfall. Well, not bad. As the master of the Red Lotus Holy Sword, Red Lotus liked everything related to the fire. She even gained the power to transform herself into a flame guardian spirit in that incredible nightmare world. The sun was the ultimate symbol of the ultimate power of burning everything. Well, I'll tell you a secret. My our prince will one day surpass the sun and become hotter and more luminous than the sun. Impossible, your non-existent prince won't even obtain 1/1000th of the glory of the sun. Red Lotus shook her head with a disdainful smile. She didn't believe a word of what her sister said about the imaginary prince. "Well, sister, I'll make a bet with you." Looking at her sister's confident look, White Lotus showed a strange smile on her face. "A bet that belongs to me, to us, and to the prince. Even after 1,000 years or 10,000 years, this bet will not expire." "Sure, what bet?" Red Lotus couldn't wait to hear it. As long as it could stop her sister's fantasy about the non-existent prince, she was willing to accept 10 bet. "The bet is very simple, that is, you will fall in love with the prince," White Lotus said with a bright smile on her face. "So, as long as I don't like that prince, you'll give up that bastard?" The corners of Red Lotus' mouth raised. "I have a 100% possibility to win. How would I like a prince that doesn't exist?" Even if the prince White Lotus fantasized about really existed, she would find him and kill him before White Lotus saw him. Her Red Lotus Holy Sword had long been hungry and thirsty for the prince's blood. If the prince appeared in front of her, she would reward him with a bloody end without saying anything at all. "Yes, because I like the prince, so will you. Just as the sun rises from the horizon every day, my sister, you will like the same person I like." White Lotus's eyes were smiling, as if she had seen the final result. "Well, I accept this bet." Red Lotus quickly agreed. "Prince, you must die." Whether it was a prince in fantasy or a prince in the real world, as long as she saw him, she would kill him. So, White Lotus stretched out her right hand, while Red Lotus stretched out her left hand with a bright smile. It was a ritual between them, and it would only be used for the most important things. In the name of White Lotus, Red Lotus. Pinky, Pinky, Bobel. Whoever tells a lie will sink down to a bad place and never rise up again. The violator will swallow 1,000 needles. Two little fingers entwined together and pulled together forcefully. Red Lotus laughed happily. My sister finally figured it out. The prince doesn't exist, how will I lose this bet? White Lotus also had a mysterious and gentle smile on her face. Sister, in that case, no matter where we go, we will not be separated. Our fates is indeed to be connected together with the prince. In the White Lotus Sword Palace, on the roof of the Witch Palace. My, Star Snow, comfortably stretched out herself. Different from matured Star Thunder and energetic Starfire, Star Snow preferred to stay in quiet places. If it wasn't necessary, she wouldn't take the initiative to come in contact with other people. After listening to the courses according to Maya's arrangement, she easily got into the Witch Palace, where she should never be found by outsiders, and found the most suitable place for sunshine. She was ready for a good sleep here. She didn't behave like a dog at all but was more like a cat. Unfortunately, the owner of the Witch Palace soon discovered her. Who is it? Red Lotus looked at her and almost burst with anger. What's this place? The Witch Palace, the core of the whole White Lotus sword domain, the place where the White Lotus secret treasure is hid. The defense system here was even stronger than the main peak where the White Lotus sword master lived. Even a mosquito shouldn't have the possibility to fly into this forbidden area. But what did she see? Someone actually got onto the roof of the shrine of the Witch Palace, and it looked like she had come here for a long time because she had fallen asleep. How absurd. Why can she pass through the defense ward of the Witch Palace? An enemy had come in, why didn't the entire defense system send an alarm? Is it a bug? The Witch Palace spent thousands of years building the perfect defense system, and now it had actually broken down without warning? My, Star Snow, looked at Red Lotus in confusion, then she saw the figure in a white witch's dress next to Red Lotus. With a smile on her face, she jumped down from the roof lightly. It's you. Red Lotus looked at her in surprise. Apparently, she was the core of the Starwing Knights. My. How did she get through the defense system of the Witch Palace? Even for Hua, it isn't possible for her to accomplish this. White Lotus gently covered her mouth, trying not to let herself make a happy voice. Prince, have you come to see me? My, Star Snow, trotted all the way to White Lotus. Then she smelled White Lotus' body all around. She smelled the unique odor of her master, Yunshi. Exactly speaking, it was part of Yunshi's smell contained in the star and moon ring. Smiling. My, Star Snow, looked at White Lotus, smiling like an angel. Hey, looking at Mai's innocent face, although White Lotus covered her mouth, she could not help but laugh out. White Lotus, when did you have such a good relationship with this maid? Looking at White Lotus' smile, which she seldom saw, Red Lotus, as her sister, was jealous. White Lotus rarely smiled. In fact, she often practiced her secret skill, the great circulation all day. Even as her sister, Red Lotus had only a few hours a day that she could talk with White Lotus. For Red Lotus, White Lotus' smile was more precious than anything. Because of the prince in her dream, they had a quarrel and she had less and less chance to see White Lotus smile. She was like a fish that left the water and a plant that couldn't bask in the sun. If she couldn't see White Lotus smile, she would lose the meaning of her life. That damn prince. It's all your fault. If White Lotus had that strange dream again, she would drive into her dream, pull out her sword and kill him 100 times. My. White Lotus murmured the pseudonym the prince was using now. Even such a simple action could let her feel happy. He was the fire of her life, the miracle she yearned for, the light of hope she had after praying thousands of times. Today, you come to me. It's really a lucky day. You are the sun, glorious and sacred. You are the moon, mysterious and gentle. You are a star, bright and shining. Wait, even though your hua was made, you can't come in here. Looking at her sister's smile, Red Lotus only felt anxious. White Lotus isn't smiling at me, the feeling of losing, as if something of great importance will soon be lost. My, how did you get in? White Lotus was also curious about this. Compared with her sister Red Lotus, she knew better how powerful the defense system of White Lotus Sword Palace was. It was absolutely not something that could be broken through simply by brute force. After all, it connected with the ley lines of the whole White Lotus sword domain, and even could borrow the power of the stars when necessary. Its full name was White Lotus 10 Killing Formations. If it was fully activated, its defensive power could even reach the legend rank. After being strengthened by the witches of the Witch Palace from generation to generation, its strength had long reached the level that no hero rank beings could break through. The number of times this place being invaded was 0 before today. Star Snow tilted her head. She didn't know how she came in too, because she just wanted to sleep under the sun, so she naturally came to this place. There must be a problem. Are you a traitor? Explain this. How did you sneak in here? Red Lotus looked at her and subconsciously felt that something was wrong. With a flash of the flame, she summoned the Red Lotus Holy Sword and put it on Mai's neck. Red Lotus Holy Sword, the strongest weapon of the Witch Palace. It contained the power of the flames of heaven. Rumors said that it was a sacred sword that could burn heaven and the earth. The handle of the sword looked like a 10-leaf red lotus. Every petal showed a brilliant crimson, as if there was blood flowing on it. Sister, don't scare her. White Lotus pinched her fingers to predict, then understood how Mai could come in. That was too obvious. She could even see the mysterious power that covered Mai's body with her naked eyes. Because of that power, the defense system of the Sword Palace didn't do anything to Mai. The power contained a breath that was immeasurably old and full of vicissitudes, like an endless desert. In the whole of White Lotus Sword domain, only one person could be the master of that power. Is it because of this? White Lotus stretched out her slender hand and pulled out the shell necklace from Mai's chest. In an instant, a mysterious aura that only strong swordsmen could feel spread in the air, which in turn suppressed the burning aura of the Red Lotus Holy Sword. This is, Red Lotus's eyes changed subtly. Yes, it's Master Cassina's token, the power of the sands of time. White Lotus smelled the fragrance on the shell with a drunken look on her face. As expected, my prince is perfect, whether he is in men's or women's clothes. I understand. Sorry, I misunderstood you. Red Lotus also understood why Mai could pass through the defense system of the Sword Palace. Sky Swords were the most exalted people in the Sky Sword God's domain. None of the Sword Palaces would judge a Sky Sword as an enemy. The whole of the White Lotus Sword Palace was defenseless to Cassina the Battle God. It was their honor that Cassina was willing to come to the Sword Palace. The last time a Sky Sword came to the White Lotus Sword Palace was thousands of years ago. Cassina was the first Sky Sword who came to the White Lotus Sword Palace in the last 1,000 years. Even the Great Sheer Imperial Palace was opened to all Sky Swords, not to mention the small White Lotus Sword Palace. It's unexpected that you hold Master Cassina's token. When looking at Mai, Star Snow, Red Lotus even felt somewhat jealous. My sister worships Master Cassina very much. Looking at Red Lotus' expression, White Lotus quietly told her prince this important information. Master Cassina is an invincible god of battle, the invincible overlord of the Battle Gods Champion Contest. Red Lotus said with longing in her eyes. Cassina the Battle God was not just a common sky sword, she was also famous in all of the Endless Gods domains. After all, she was also the only legend rank female swordsman who won the title of Battle God. Not only in the Sky Sword God's domain, even in the Western God's domain and the Dragon God's domain, but there were also countless women who worshipped her. Red Lotus was also one of them. She was Cassina's biggest fan. When she first saw Cassina on the Water God's fantastic island, she was so nervous that she could hardly speak. After that, when traveling with Cassina, Red Lotus often consulted Cassina about how to improve her fighting skills, and got a lot of instructions from Cassina. Originally, the power of the legend rank should be beyond the boundaries that any hero-ranked beings could understand. However, Cassina's martial arts was one of the few exceptions. After all, martial arts was the power that was created for weak human beings to challenge strong enemies. After being taught by Cassina, Red Lotus respected her more. Seeing that Mai had Cassina's token, Red Lotus' attitude also changed. Sister, it's your fault, so, apologize. Finding that her sister Red Lotus was feeling guilty, White Lotus showed a strange smile on her face and lightly pushed her sister. Well, it was my fault. I apologize. Do you need any compensation? After knowing the reason why Mai could come in, Red Lotus also felt that her attitude just now was too bad. I think it would be good for Mai to attend our sacrificial ceremony. Sacrificial ceremony. Red Lotus frowned first, then nodded and said, no problem. It's suitable to be a compensation. The sacrificial ceremony of the Witch Palace was a very solemn and sacred ceremony, and not everyone was eligible to participate in it. Almost all noble families in the Sky Sword God's domain wanted to attend the sacrificial ceremony of the witches, but only very few of them could succeed. Why were they so enthusiastic about this? Because the sacrificial ceremony was a special prayer of the Witch Palace, the people who attend this ceremony could get some incredible experience, and even have a small chance to improve their talent. Although the chance was slim, however, there were only a handful of ways in the Endless God's domain could improve a person's talent, and the costs of most of them was so huge that very few people dared to try. The sacrificial ceremony of the Witch Palace was one of the methods that you didn't need to pay a too huge price. So long as they took part in it, they would have 10% of the possibility to strengthen their talent. Not only in the Sky Sword God's domain, in the whole of the Eastern God's domain and even the distant Western God's domain, many famous families knew this. It was said that the sacrificial ceremonies of the several most famous witches in the next 100 years had all been reserved by these noble families. Red Lotus and White Lotus just started to learn the sacrificial ceremony this year, and they succeeded in their practice not long ago. The news hadn't been spread yet, otherwise, the Witch Palace wouldn't be so quiet now. The sacrificial ceremony was a prayer and a way of practice for witches. The sacrificial ceremony could only be performed once a month and would last about 3 days. There were various taboos in the sacrificial ceremony, and once the sacrificial ceremony started, no one could stop it. Otherwise, the witches who held the sacrificial ceremony would get hurt, including vomiting blood and even being cursed. Because of this, the sacrificial ceremony was a ceremony that all witches should keep practicing throughout their lives, and the assistants who could participate in it must be strictly selected. Most of the time, witches weren't willing to let any outsiders attend the sacrificial ceremony, especially the young witches who had just learned how to perform the sacrificial ceremony. In order to keep their mind clean, they were not allowed to be disturbed by anything. However, Red Lotus didn't mind letting Mai take part in the ceremony, because she wasn't alone. Her sister White Lotus would help her in the ceremony. White Lotus was naturally good at all kinds of magic arts. Even the defense system of the Witch Palace had been revised by her and increased its power by 30%. Unlike Red Lotus, who was good at fighting, White Lotus was known for her wisdom and understanding about magic arts. Because White Lotus had such a great talent, so that they could be qualified to hold the sacrificial ceremony at this young age. This was the highest level of spiritual practice of the Witch Palace. Even after reaching the legend rank, it wouldn't be antiquated. In fact, in the sacrificial ceremony, White Lotus herself was the one who held the ceremony, and Red Lotus was just White Lotus' assistant. Mai, Star Snow, looked at White Lotus with curiosity. Her head slightly cocked. It will take 3 days to prepare the ceremony. You are recognized by Master Cassina, therefore, in return for her, I have to let you know what the sacrificial ceremony means, so that you can get the greatest benefit. Red Lotus and White Lotus walked together in the garden of the Witch Palace. White Lotus held Mai's hand and Red Lotus explained what the sacrificial ceremony was for Mai. The sacrificial ceremony is a top-level secret skill of god witches. From ancient times, our witches used it to communicate with the creatures that didn't exist in our world. Sacrificial ceremony, literally, this is a way to present sacrifices to the gods. However, we can't make sure who the god is. Most of the time, we can summon a good, kind god, but sometimes, some horrible creatures would also respond to the sacrificial ceremony. Good gods will bless us. Unknown, horrible creatures will bring curses. Occasionally, some neutral creatures would also respond to the ceremony, trading with us. After being improved by witches from generation to generation, the chances of being cursed have been greatly reduced. Most creatures who respond to our summons are friendly gods or fantastic creatures. Improving the participator's talent is one of the side effects of the sacrificial ceremony. If the god or creature appeared on the sacrificial altar has the same type of energy as you will have the opportunity to absorb a part of their auras to enhance your own talent. The probability is about 10% and works for all hero-ranked beings. Invite the god, then send the god away. This was the special ability of the witches, and the way to communicate with many creatures in other worlds was the top secret of the witches in the Endless Gods domain. The Witch Palace in the White Lotus Sword domain was just a small branch of the God Witches in the Endless Gods domains. The history of the God Witches was said to be even longer than the establishment of the Endless Gods domains. It was an ancient force that existed before the first star bridge was built. Sister, have you decided what god you want to summon this time? Holding her prince's hand, White Lotus looked calm, but her fast heartbeat had exposed her true mood. The prince's hand is so warm. Well, like last time, I want to summon a fire-type god or fantastic creature. Actually, Red Lotus wasn't good at the sacrificial ceremony. She was only responsible for offering her spiritual power for White Lotus in the ceremony. Nobody knows how many super beings exist in the Endless Gods domains, just as nobody knows the margin of the starry world. In the endless worlds, there were endless gods. The existence they could summon depended on the rank of the sacrifices, which was one of the reasons why witches had to let noble families take part in the ceremony. After all, the sacrifices that could entertain a god wouldn't be cheap. No, I think we can summon a stronger god this time, White Lotus said confidently and stroked the prince's soft hands. Well, but isn't the sacrifice just a fire-type ruby? Red Lotus looked at her sister with a confused look. Although she was not very proficient in the sacrificial ceremony, at least, she knew the basic principles of the ceremony. The quality of the sacrifices determined the level of the gods that could be summoned in the sacrificial ceremony. Which meant, to summon a stronger god, they must prepare a more precious sacrifice. Rumors said that in the similar rituals of black magic, in order to summon a powerful evil spirit, dark wizards would even kill millions of people as blood sacrifices. Naturally, witches wouldn't use such a bloody method, they preferred to use valuable sacrifices. After trying endless summons, god witches had found some relationships between the sacrifices and the gods they summoned. If the sacrifice was a fire-type ruby, it would probably be a fire-type spirit who responded to their summon, and there was a small probability that a giant dragon would respond to them. Obsidian was not recommended as a sacrifice, because only dark-type evil spirits liked this kind of sacrifices. If it wasn't necessary, none of the witches would use an obsidian as a sacrifice. The principle of equivalence exchange was also working in the sacrificial ceremony, therefore, the witches must pay attention to their endurance when they performed the sacrificial ceremony. In their long history, a witch once mistook a rare star-type obsidian as an ordinary obsidian. As a result, she summoned an indescribable, horrible existence and was devoured by it. Of course, it was a very rare exception. Most witches who performed the sacrificial invitation would prepare sacrifices that match their own strength. They wouldn't let the situation get out of their control. This time, according to previous experience, the sacrifice prepared by Red Lotus was a ruby containing a lot of flame spirits, therefore, the existence who would respond to their call would naturally be a fire-type god or fantastic creature. No, we won't use the ruby, I have a better sacrifice this time. White Lotus looked at me confidently. The prince is the incarnation of a miracle and the glory of hope. She could do anything as long as she was with the prince. Do we have that kind of thing? Red Lotus was confused. White Lotus sword domain was just a small, remote sword domain. That ruby was almost the highest quality sacrifice they could find. Yes, it was a gift from the water god, Hydra. White Lotus took out a milky white gem with a hazy mist inside. At first glance, it was just an ordinary gem, however, if you kept looking at it, you would find that the interior of the gem was constantly changing. The hazy fog in the gem changed from huge mountains to vast oceans, presenting an all-embracing scene. Kryolite. Red Lotus was shocked after realizing what the precious gem in White Lotus's hand was. Compared with the fire-type ruby she prepared, the level of Kryolite was far higher. The fire-type ruby in her hand could be the material used to forge the highest level of fire-type god weapon, However, the Kryolite in White Lotus's hand could be embedded in a real god weapon without any extra step. It was a treasure that could only be obtained from real fantastic creatures or gods. Before humans understood the concept of a god weapon, gods were using this kind of materials to forge original god weapons. Compared with this, the fire-type ruby she prepared before was just nothing. What was more precious was that the Kryolite was one of the most suitable sacrifices for the sacrificial ceremony. It could almost guarantee a 100% chance to communicate with a random high-level extraordinary existence, and all the beings of the three camps, good, neutral and evil, all liked it. Even amongst gods, it could be used as money. From this point, its rarity was self-evident. Isn't that too wasteful? It's Kryolite. Even in Red Lotus eyes, the Kryolite was too precious to be a sacrifice. Its price couldn't be counted by money. After all, only gods or fantastic creatures could make Kryolite, and money was meaningless to gods and fantastic creatures. Gods and fantastic creatures both had the ability to change the material constitution from the molecular level, which was the so-called touch a stone and turn it into gold. Therefore, none of the mortal wealth such as gold and silver were valuable to them. Only these gems contained the free energy of the universe. For example, the fire-type ruby would let some gods feel interested in it. This kind of fire-type ruby was generally accumulated in the ley lines after tens of millions of years. Even in a large gem vein, there would be only a few fire-type gems. Even gods couldn't control time, therefore, the fire spirit contained in the ruby was the core of the sacrificial ceremony. Ordinary rubies had no such effect at all. The last time, White Lotus used a fire-type ruby as the sacrifice, and successfully summoned a fire-type fantastic creature. By absorbing the fire power of the fantastic creature, the power of Red Lotus Holy Sword was greatly improved. Yes, since it's an apology, we should show our sincerity. White Lotus narrowed her eyes habitually and smiled at her sister, which was gazing at her with a confused look. She knew that her sister would agree in the end. Ah, you're really being self-willed, but since it's a Kryolite, there should be no problem. As White Lotus had expected, although Red Lotus frowned, she finally agreed to her sister's request. Apart from any things related to the prince, Red Lotus's love for her sister was unconditional. She would be willing to meet any of White Lotus' demands. Yes, anything apart from the prince. The prince must die. Thank you, sister. I'm also looking forward to what we can summon in the sacrificial ceremony. White Lotus smiled with her eyes squinted. The Kryolite was her gift for the prince from the beginning. In order to obtain it, she had also made a deal with the water god, Hydra. She just didn't expect that she would be able to use it this soon. With the power of miracle from the prince, what kinds of existences could see the bright light of the Kryolite? She was also curious about this in her heart. Star Snow looked at White Lotus in confusion. She didn't understand why White Lotus was holding her hand so tightly. I want to bask in the sun. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.